Hey guys. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Met a Legendary Creature. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 8. Nobility and Commoners? Bitch please, nobody's got time for such stupid comparisons. Class segregation is for societies that need help trying to make themselves feel better about themselves when in the presence of others. Truth be told, they're all the same. Just scared, little people who want to give worth to their existences. Namikaze. Uzumaki Naruto. Drip. 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 The sounds of the dripping water droplets were echoing throughout the recesses of the sewer-like complex, the small and insignificant molecules of fluid somehow managing to make their effect appear deafening as they collided with the water beneath. However, that deafening effect proved fruitful as with a start and a gasp of air, the tanned, blonde shinobi of Konoha rose up into a sitting position, acting as if he had just been pricked in the ass by a very sharp needle. He shook his head, ridding it of the water that soaked its back before climbing to his feet. He looked around and quickly realized he lay within his mindscape. The yellow-gray area had its floors still soaked with a low level of water. The blue and red pipes that represented his chakra and Kurama's chakra flowed around each other like a double helix, some areas of the helix branching off down other hallways to reach other areas. His ears twitched as he caught the sound of Kurama's heavy breathing and followed it. Walking down the maze of hallways, he finally rounded a corner and came to a stop in the center of a large spacious area where the cage of Kurama lay before him. Its black, iron bars are held closed by the small tag that reads seal. When his footsteps came to an end, the darkness of the cage gained a red hue as the chakra of Kurama sprung to life, and the fox's crimson iris made itself known. The vertical slit seemed like an endless void within the bisected circle of red, and Naruto had never noticed it before. But the Kyubi no Yoko's eyes was very mesmerizing. His head tilted slightly as he was drawn deeper into the abyss. Naruto! Huh! Naruto's head snapped back into its right position and looked around before realizing it was Kurama himself that had called his name. What? Boy, you have been lying unconscious within here for quite a while now, and as soon as you arrive in here you look as if you were in a coma. Did the Kagaya brat hit you that hard, or are you just that scatterbrained? The mighty beast asked. Well, if I am scatterbrained it is because I learned from the best. He gave a smirk accompanied by a gesture to the gargantuan canine. Kurama snarled and slammed his claws at the cage, sparks flying forth in a storm of orange from the friction. You are rather smart-mouthed, aren't you, brat? Well, I would like so very much to verbally destroy your mind, but I'd rather do this instead. A pulse of crimson rocketed out from beneath the cage, careening through the waters and flowed throughout the halls of the blonde Namikaze's mindscape, and suddenly the mental apparition of Naruto's consciousness fell to his knees and clutched his skull in pain. Kyuso! Kurama, that hurts. Another pulse followed afterwards. Kyubi, my bad. He corrected me. Your battle was indeed quite a spectacle, and my respect for you has grown. As a shinobi, that is. But you are still not worthy in my eyes to be able to use my true name. If it were not for the Raijuu you would have never have learned it. However, you do, but again, do not speak it unless you are granted the ability to do so. You may be able to do it when you wish, but if you do so, you are aware of the migraines and headaches I am capable of causing. Plus, I am still capable of overshadowing your consciousness should you succumb to your negative emotions. That is if Kamina doesn't involve himself. Naruto remained quiet throughout the nine-tailed fox's speech, but then perked up upon the mention of his electrical beast of a sensei. Speaking of which, where is Kamina-sensei? Somewhere in the hallways of your mind. You are rather empty-headed, something he should have realized long ago. Kurama chuckled at Naruto's annoyed face. However, now that we have said his name, he should arrive, now. A flash of light and an echo akin to that of thunder resounded throughout the mindscape, and Naruto and Kurama were forced to shield their eyes, lest their retinas be burned into ash. When the light died down, the white and blue wolf-like creature stood before Naruto and Kurama in all his glory. The ice-blue eyes of the Thunder Beast gained a cold look as they seemed to crackle with the power of the storms. Kamina-sensei. Naruto grinned. So, what did you think? I won and I totally kicked Kagaya Shinji's ass. Granted that I did take a good beating myself, but still, I am such a badass. Naruto's cheeky grin remained until he noticed the cold look of the Raiju's eyes had remained firm. Kamina-sensei? Naruto, I bless you with the powers you can currently use. I blessed you with Raijuu Arc and helped you forge your skills to become as strong as you possibly can, and you still haven't, as your potential is near limitless, and thus you can continuously grow stronger and stronger. However, even though you bear the Kyubi no Yoko, even though you contain Kamina the Raijuu, and even though you bear the blood of the Uzumaki, you dare to do such a reckless act. Kamina roared, lightning sparking off of his body in rage. The quadruped's body heaved with deep breaths, an act of restrained anger. WH what? Naruto stepped back in disbelief as he watched Kamina. The wolf-like creature took a single step towards his charge and the blonde immediately caved beneath the pressure of power the beast exerted, falling to his knees. Kamina-sensei, what the hell are you talking about? Kamina raised a non-existent eyebrow at Naruto before looking down at Naruto's hands. The hands that fused wind and lightning to create the element of the heavens, Tenten. Naruto, when I began to teach you how to utilize the Raijuu Arc, I gave you certain guidelines in order to aid you, and you listened. However, you seem to have forgotten that I had actually laid a taboo on you. Did I not tell you beforehand that wind and lightning are the most unpredictable elements, that they are not to be fused without utmost caution? Yet here you lay on your knees before me, asking me what the hell you did. What you did was that you nearly lost the ability to lose your arm. You fused wind and lightning chakras and made Tenten, and it is only by the sheer luck of the Uzumaki that you are still capable of moving that limb. What? But how? Listen to us, brat. Kurama started. The clash of such volatile elements within your chakra network nearly caused that specific area of your chakra network to be torn asunder, same as your arm muscles. If it weren't for the fact that you possess two sources of healing factors, myself and your natural Uzumaki bloodline, you'd be unable to use that arm and your career as a shinobi would have either been hindered or completely over. Naruto could only gape in shock as stared at his hands and then back at his two senseis. The demon and divine beast stared back at him, waiting to see if he had a response. Grunts of sound escaped Naruto's throat, but whatever words he could possibly say stopped and formed a lump in his throat. How long did it take to heal? You've been out for nearly a day, but due to how much of my chakra I used to heal your arm, it took only an hour to repair your damaged arm tissue, but the chakra network itself was delicate, and so it took another 5 hours to repair that. Kurama replied. Kamina-sensei, now that you are aware of the consequences, I can see that you are truly sorry for your actions. But, in actuality, I cannot truly blame you for performing such an action, as it seems you performed the Tenten Jutsu out of pure instinct. Creating a new jutsu style out of thin air is a rather amazing feat, and while I dislike your usage of it, and the fact that I saw it as mere abuse of your Raijuu Arc elements, I will admit that the Tenten Jutsus are rather powerful, and given the time, you could be able to master the use with minimal drawbacks and live with one of the most powerful technique types the elemental nations will ever feast their eyes upon. Kamina said. What are you saying? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. First, the Thunder Beast was angry and disappointed, and now he was praising him? The heir of the Uzumaki and Namikaze could only wonder just what went on within the divine being's head. What I'm saying, my student, is that though I am rather disappointed in your judgment to disobey my warnings, now that I have seen the effects of what your little experiment was, I can say that maybe learning to master Tenten would be a rather beneficial venture. I will help you to learn how to properly merge your elements, and create techniques utilizing the Tenten Jutsus. After all, what kind of teacher would I be if I didn't allow my student to use what he has to the best of his abilities? Really? You're going to help me now? Naruto exclaimed in disbelief. Kamina nodded. Yes, I will. I am actually against this. It's a waste of chakra to continuously heal this boy's body. It took hours just to repair his arm to its full potential. If he were to continue practicing this, it could end his life and by extension my own. You are mad, Raijuu, Kurama said. Do not fret, Kurama. The reason for Naruto's extensive injury was because he overloaded his body with chakra, thus causing it to burst and tear in the places that needed healing. Now that he is aware of the consequences, he just needs to relearn the basic principles that all shinobi use. Chakra control. Kamina smiled as he heard Naruto groan. The blonde planted his face into his hands. Ugh, I hate chakra control. It's so difficult, especially now that I know the reason is because of the large amount that I have. If you wish to be able to use Tenten, I would like you to be able to do so without hurting yourself to such a large degree, such as the aftermath of your battle with the Kaguya boy. The Raijuu replied. Speaking of which, congratulations on your victory. Thank you, sensei. Naruto grinned cheekily. Kamina nodded with a smile on his canine face. By the way, Kamina-sensei, Kyubi? The two beasts looked at the human before them, non-existent eyebrows raised. How long have I been out? However, you have been out for nearly 2 days due to chakra exhaustion, physical exhaustion, and your injuries. You should be properly healed by now, so I think it's best you wake up now, Kurama said. Now leave my presence, brat, I wish to sleep. A deafening roar followed by a flash of red light, and Naruto felt as if he had been thrust through the air like a shuriken. Kirigakyu no Sato Chunin Exam Medical Bay. Naruto woke up with a start like he did earlier in his mindscape. He looked up at the white ceiling and the familiar smell of morphine assaulted his nostrils. He groaned as he rose up from his bed and looked at the heart rate monitor and blood pressure monitors at his side. He ripped out the cords attached to his body, causing the screens beeping to cease as they flatlined and cracked his tense joints. His neck, back, and other joints released audible pops, snaps, and cracks as he finished stretching before he twisted and planted his feet on the ground. He removed himself from his bed and only then did he realize that he was entirely coated in bandages. Well, almost entirely. His face, minus the cheek bandage, and his right arm seemed quite fine. He was also missing a major amount of clothing, his dark blue boxers being his only article left. He quickly took off his bandages and looked around the hospital room. Guess everywhere you go, the hospital is always white. Damn, that morphine is strong, Naruto thought as he nearly lost his balance due to the numb feeling that morphine brought with it was still within his body. His ears twitched as he heard the sound of footsteps approaching his location. Turning his head, he looked to see the 2 Sannin and 1 Sannin's assistant approach him. Oh, you're awake, Naruto-kun. It's good to see you're still as lively as ever, even after taking such a beating from Kaguya-san. Shizen greeted him happily, giving him a gentle hug in case he was still in any pain. Nice to see you too, Shizen-ne-chan. Itai. His happy face shifted into that of pain as the powerful fist of the slug Sannin crashed against his skull. Akbachan, what the hell was that for? That was for signing up for the Chunin exams without my notification. What? But that's Arokyofu's fault. Itai. Another punch floored the rising Jinchuriki. That was for putting yourself in a near-death situation and having me worried sick, Gaki. Tsunade growled as she watched Naruto holding the smoking bump on his cranium. He was then picked up by his hair and roughly brought to his feet before the fierce brown eyes of Senju Tsunade met his own sapphire ones. And this? Naruto flinched out of reflex only for his eyes to widen as he felt Tsunade's lips press against his forehead. Naruto blinked in confusion as he suddenly felt a bit of nostalgia as this particular act made him remember the scene from when Tsunade had chosen to come back to the village with them to be Hokage. The older blonde smiled at her little brother figure as she pulled away from him. That was for a job well done. Congratulations on winning the Chunin exams, Naruto. Naruto blushed slightly at the praise before his hair was ruffled harshly by Jiraiya. Way to go, brat. You did your old godfather proud. Naruto grinned like a fox as his godfather continued to ruffle his hair. He was then hit in the face by an unexpected wall of cloth. Naruto quickly tore the cloth off his face to find that it was a new set of clothes. Now put on some clothes and let's go to the Mizukage. Mei-chan is expecting us. Mei-chan? Tsunade raised an eyebrow at the white-haired man. Yeah, she's a rather friendly little thing. Don't worry though, you still have bigger breasts than her. Jiraiya chuckled only to be sent halfway through the wall from Tsunade's punch. Oh, the pain. The pain hurts so much. Jiraiya squeaked out weakly. Well, while your perverted sensei tries to crawl out of the wall, Shizen, just run a last-minute diagnostic check on Naruto. Shizen nodded to her mentor, and her hands immediately became coated with the soft green glow of healing chakra. She quickly ran it over the young teenager's body before giving a nod of satisfaction. Looks like you're all better, Naruto-kun. Good to hear, Nei-chan. Naruto then stepped towards his bed and drew the curtains so no one would see his birthday suit as he was going to change into his new clothes. So anyway, Ba-chan? Naruto called out from behind the curtain. Why does the Mizukage want to see me? You'll see when we get there. Tsunade replied. Oh, Ba-chan, you're no fun. The son of the Yondaime Hokage pouted. A gasp suddenly pierced the air as Jiraiya finally managed to escape through his prison of concrete and plaster. Damn. That one was nearly made by a skull cave-in. Nearly? Should I try again? She threatened him jokingly, but the white-haired Sannin quickly ducked behind the curtain where Naruto was changing. What the, Aerokyofu, move your perverted ass out of here! Jiraiya was quickly punted out from behind the curtain before a fully dressed Naruto followed behind him. Shizen looked at her little brother's figure and nodded approvingly. See, Tsunade Shusho. I told you he would look good in these clothes. Tsunade looked at her assistant before turning to Naruto. The spiky-haired blonde was dressed in a long-sleeved, dark blue shirt which was worn over a chain mesh shirt for protection against weaponry that would pierce the shirt had the Uzumaki spiral proudly emblazoned on the back. A pair of black pants ended at his ankles and a pair of black shinobi sandals adorned his feet. A scroll was tossed at him from Jiraiya and Naruto quickly opened it to reveal his weapons pouch, his sheathed tanto, and his hitite. He quickly attached the pouch to his right hip, attached his tanto to his back using the built-in strap attached to the sheath, and wrapped his hitite around his forehead. Making sure the knot of the hitite was tight enough, he quickly formed a kage bunshin and looked at his clone. Damn boss, we look good. Naruto grinned and gave his clone a high five. Badasses for life. The clone nodded before dispelling itself. Alright, now that your little vanity episode is over, come on. The Mizukage is expecting us. Naruto nodded to his Hokage before he raised his hands in the ram sign. Kaze Shunshin no Jutsu. He vanished in a swirl of leaves and wind. Tsunade, Jiraiya and Shizen performed their own Shunshin and followed after the blonde at chakra-enhanced speeds. Kirigakure no Sato Mizukage Tower Mizukage's office. Terumi Mei, the beautiful auburn-haired Godame Mizukage of Kirigakure no Sato sighed as she stared at her desk. If I had known becoming the Mizukage left this much paperwork for me, I'd have never led the damn rebellion in the first place. She sighed. With great power comes great responsibility, Mizukage-sama. Ao told his superior. The head of the Kirigakure NBU looked at the smiling face of his leader before sweat dropping as he realized she would tell him to. Ao, shut up, or I'll kill you. And there it is. Ao sighed. What is it that I do that she keeps saying she's going to kill me? The blue-haired man thought. However, his face quickly shifted into a serious expression, and he quickly jumped in front of his leader, the hidden ANBU in the room also appearing out of the shadows of the large room before 4 plumes of smoke appeared. The smoke cleared to reveal the 4 Konoha shinobi, and the ANBU quickly aimed to strike them down, but Mei simply raised her hand and they halted in their motions. Mizukage-sama? They questioned. It's alright, boys. Tsunade Dano, her assistant, and Jiraiya-san are guests. Naruto-san, congratulations on winning the Chunin exams, by the way. Excuse my guards for the trouble. It is no trouble, Mizukage-sama. Naruto replied with a formal tone of voice and a small nod of his head. The ANBU gave one last wary look at the 4 Konoha members before reverting into mist and melting back into whatever shadows they were hiding in. Ao returned to Mei's side and the leader of Kirigakure continued to give that warm smile towards the blonde. Shall I commence this operation then, Tsunade Dano? You may, Meidano. The 2 Busta women nodded to one another before the 2 Sannin and Shizen stepped off to the side, leaving Naruto alone beneath the gaze of the green-eyed Mizukage. Uzumaki Naruto of Kanehigakure knows Sato. Mei spoke with a tone of authority. Naruto did not expect such a tone from the seemingly kind-hearted Kage, but he immediately stood straighter than he had done before as his name was called upon. Hi, Mizukage-sama. During the Chunin exams you showed tremendous trickery as you lied about coming into these examinations with a team, but instead ventured out with 2 Kage bunshins under the guise of a Henji no Jutsu. While this does lead to mistrust, you have not shown any ill will towards my nation, and Jiraiya-san and Tsunade Dano have vouched for your pardon, and so you are spared from any sort of punishment that I would have thrust upon you. However, know that even if I had suspicion towards you, I would not have killed you. Why not, Mizukage-sama? Because you were interesting. And I was right to let you go, as you have shown to be able to be quite a remarkable competitor. You have shown amazing prowess in nearly all of the styles and techniques that a shinobi knows. Ninjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, and even fuinjutsu. The level at which you perform these skills is exemplary, and to be able to tame the mighty beast, the kaiju of Kiri, Gajira, is an even greater feat in itself. You flatter me, Mizukage-sama. Naruto bowed. Mei giggled at the boy's formality before gesturing to her fellow Kage. Tsunade then stepped forth to stand next to the busted Mizukage. The brown-eyed woman gazed at the spiky-haired blonde with pride and happiness, her face hiding it with a mask of seriousness, but Naruto saw her eyes had betrayed her and conveyed her true emotions to him. Naruto gave a smirk towards his Bachan. You are worthy of praise on this day, Uzumaki Naruto. And so, it is with great pleasure that I and Tsunade Dano officially grant you the rank of Chunin. Congratulations, Uzumaki Naruto. May you wear the vest of Konoha with pride. Tsunade reached into her red and white Hokage robes that she wore for the formal occasion that was the Chunin exams and pulled out a single scroll. Unfurling it, she pumped a small amount of chakra into the seal formula, and in a plume of smoke, the granddaughter of Senju Hashirama held a single green Chunin vest. She tossed the vest at Naruto, and the blonde immediately caught it, staring at the article of clothing with shock. His cerulean orbs were wide with shock, his jaw agape, and his hands were trembling slightly. Are you serious? He stuttered. Congratulations, Chunin, Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade smiled. Naruto felt tears rise up and his vision became blurry, and he tried to hold them back. He quickly wiped them away before laughing, and he walked towards Tsunade. Screw the formal setting, Naruto muttered before rushing forth and wrapping Tsunade in a hug. Thank you so much, Bachan. What the, Naruto? Not here, we're in public. Naruto. Tsunade tried to pry the blonde shinobi off of her and blushed heavily in embarrassment, as she aimed to remove the newly formed Chunin from her body. Mei chuckled at the sight, Jiraiya and Shizen grinned but were not too afraid to actually laugh at Tsunade's expression. Ao remained stoic and merely turned away from the young Genin's, the young Chunin's exciting moment. Naruto pulled back and released Tsunade from his grip before putting on the vest and bowing to Tsunade. I won't let you down, Bossy H. I mean, Hokage-sama. Tsunade chuckled at her fellow blonde before ruffling his hair. I know you won't, brat. Now you better go now, you still have training to do and I have to get back to Konoha. Naruto nodded. Tsunade then turned to Jiraiya with a serious look on his face. Shizen was smiling as she and Naruto walked off to the side, Naruto making exaggerated hand motions and sound effects as he explained his epicness and excitement at becoming a Chunin. If you could excuse myself and Jiraiya-san for a few minutes, Mizukage Dano? Of course, Hokage Dano. Tsunade nodded in thanks to her fellow Kage before heading out of the entrance to the office. The door closed behind them and Tsunade quickly faced Jiraiya with a serious expression on her face, her chocolate brown eyes staring into Jiraiya's black ones. He called you Kyofu. He knows you are his godfather, meaning you told him. Jiraiya nodded in confirmation as Tsunade whispered to him in a tone so soft it would seem it would take a dog's ears to be able to pick up on what she was saying. How much does he know? Tsunade asked with a sigh. Everything. When I took him to Yuzuno Kuni, he found the remainder of Uzumaki scrolls. He got really pissed and nearly tried to kill me, but when he calmed down, I told him of his mother. I told him how Kushina used to be the second Jinchuriki of the Kyubi. I explained the relation to you and your clan, the Senju, so you don't need to hide that familial relation you have with him anymore since you are cousins now after all. He chuckled. Tsunade released a laugh of her own before turning to the door where Naruto lay on the other side. And his father? He actually figured that out on his own. He had his suspicions, but when I told him about Kushina's relations and whatnot, plus he mentioned that the Yandane was the only one who bore any physical resemblance to him, it clicked and he confirmed that Minato was his father. Well, that's good to know. The brat's gone through enough of not knowing who his family was, and I'm sure it's gotten rid of most of his mental demons. They'd be proud of him, Jiraiya said with a smile. Yeah. His father's looks, his mother's personality, and both their will of fire, Tsunade said. With that, the conversation ended and Tsunade opened the door and told Shizen it was time to go. Shizen nodded and she and Tsunade gave a bow of respect to the Godame Mizukage before vanishing in a Shenshin. Thank you for those words of praise, Mizukage-sama. Jiraiya-sensei and I shall be on our way then, Naruto said with a bow. Thank you for having us, Jiraiya said with a matching bow. Mei nodded in response. You are welcome, Jiraiya-san, Naruto-kun. Visit when you can, Naruto-kun. Our resident kaiju may like to see you from time to time. I will do what I can. And with that, Jiraiya and Naruto left in a swirl of wind and leaves. Mei sighed as she stared at the spot that the two males had occupied. Such a nice boy. Ayo? Yes, Mizukage-sama? Did this pile of paperwork somehow get larger? Mizu no Kuni boating docks of Kiri. The wind gently blew through the air, the salty smell of it making Naruto twitch his nose. Alright Gaki. We're the boats loading up, come on. Coming Ero Kyofu. Stop yelling that out so loudly. Naruto grunted in pain as he clutched his shoulder that Jiraiya punched ever so hard. Hypocritical pervert. He muttered beneath his breath. Adjusting his travel pack that Jiraiya had originally sealed into a scroll for him during the Chunin exams, he followed the white-haired Sannin to the boat and climbed aboard. What took you all so long? Tsunade asked as she walked up behind the two as they sat at the frontal railing of the boat. Bachan? Why are you on this boat? Well, I have to go back to Konoha and this is the boat that heads back to the mainland, correct? Yeah, but shouldn't the Hokage have a private boat or something? Naruto asked. Tsunade and Jiraiya rolled their eyes before pointing at the mast of the boat. Naruto looked at it before raising his head to see the sails emblazoned with the swirl-shaped lead that was Konoha's insignia. Naruto's sweat dropped at that. Oh, was all he could reply with. Wait, but Erokyofu, I thought we were going on a public boat. Didn't we do that on our way here from when we finished training in Yuzushio? Yeah, but now that Haim's here, we can hitch a free ride back to the mainland. He reasoned with his charge. Free? Naruto said the word as if it were a foreign concept to him and Jiraiya nodded. Free. Free is good. It always is, Jiraiya said as he draped his arm atop his much shorter apprentice. The boat then took off and left the docks. The salty sea spray wafted through the air as the boat rode the waves back to the mainland and Hai no Kuni. The boat rose and fell as it rode the waves. Naruto sat on the deck, gazing at the waves. His ears twitched as the sounds of his sensei's sandals and his Hokage's high heels clacked loudly against the wooden surface. You know, if you could walk louder that would be great, the Kyubi Jinchuriki said sarcastically. I could, but I might break the deck if I did that, Tsunade said. You'd probably break the whole ship, Jiraiya deadpanned. Tsunade shrugged at her fellow Sannin's words. They were true, so she couldn't really say anything about it. Naruto turned to the sensei of his father. Oh, Erokyofu? Jiraiya didn't even look at his godson as he focused on the waves. So now that I'm a Chunin and we're heading back to the mainland, where do we go now? What are we going to do? He asked. Tsunade turned to the white-haired man at that. I'm curious as well. You've been training at Yuzu no Kuni for the first few months of this training trip. What's your next move? The gambling addict asked. Well, we're going to head to Takigakure no Sato, So in order to do so we will be heading to Yugakure before cutting through the upper sections of Hai no Kuni. Takigakure? The two blondes tilted their heads simultaneously in the exact same manner. Jiraiya held back a laugh at how similar the two were. However, while Tsunade remained confused, Naruto's eyes widened before he grinned. Jiraiya turned as he saw this happen out of his peripheral vision. What made you so happy? Nothing, it's just that I remember back during the first few months of when I was a genin, Team 7 had a mission to go to Takigakure. It was an escort mission to take the rightful heir from Konoha back to Taki. Shibuki was his name. When we brought him back, his village was undergoing a coup by a few Nuknin, and their leader, Suyin, I think his name was using the treasure, the hero's water, to try and help him. Shibuki was a coward and didn't even want to be a leader, but I managed to get it through to him that his father, the previous ruler of Taki, wouldn't have just sat idly by while his village was being attacked, and so he got courage and aimed to fight back. Jiraiya and Tsunade listened to the blonde Chunin. Sometimes they wondered just how the hell the brat got into so much trouble. So as Shibuki went to fight Suyin, he failed because it was his first time fighting and so he went down rather quickly. So then, Sasuke. He spat out the name with venom and Jiraiya chose to ignore this as the blonde continued to talk, and we fought the bastard and well he was winning. I used Kyuubi's chakra, kicked the crap out of him and everyone went home happy. I was named a hero there apparently because I helped make Shibuki into the man he became that day. Naruto shrugged. Jiraiya and Tsunade stared at Naruto with eyes widened to such a degree it would put owls to shame. You really have no idea how much I could have used you during the political crap, Naruto, Tsunade said. Nah, I don't want to get involved with politics all that much right now. Doing sideline stuff, campaigning, it all sounds like too much hassle. Do you know how shady political parties can be? It's disgusting, Naruto said. Since when do you know politics? Jiraiya and Tsunade asked. Since I read the Uzumaki clan scrolls. Explains the history and traditions of the clan. Politics were included in order to understand the elemental nation's way of working, and it was where they gained the knowledge to set up their own, where they select the strongest members of the family to manage the key parts of Yuzushiogakure. Oh, was the intelligent reply from the two Sannin. So, you're friends with this Shibuki guy now? Jiraiya asked. I would believe so, why? Naruto asked. Because if you are friends it means that you can get us easy access into the village. They say the village is literally hidden by a waterfall, but there are various underwater caverns and you need to swim through the correct one to reach the village. Yeah, that's right. If you go through the wrong one, you'll never make it back and you die from drowning. Naruto explained. But I see what you're saying with respect to the Shibuki thing. I guess my being friends with their leader would make it easy for us to get in without any trouble. Exactly. Isn't my apprentice the greatest? Jiraiya laughed. Naruto grinned while Tsunade rolled her eyes. And Jiraiya said she and Naruto resemble each other? They should look in the mirror while they smile, and then you'd see a resemblance. Oh, by the way, Ba-chan? Naruto spoke, getting Tsunade's attention. Before I left, Sakura said she was accepted to be your apprentice, and that you'd train her to be a medic nin. I'm going to be honest here, Ba-chan, Sakura was rather, well, she's useless. That's the word, Naruto said with a snap of his fingers. So anyway, how is she doing? Tsunade sighed, scratching her head as if she were thinking to find the right words. Well, honestly, Naruto, her chakra control is the only thing getting her by in my training. However, with respect to everything else, she's either average or downright sucks. Her taijutsu sucks, her weapons used is average, her ninjutsu repertoire doesn't expand beyond the Academy 3, but I'm working on that by teaching her the medical jutsus I know. Her genjutsu skills could be amazing, but I'm not one for genjutsu, so I had her do that on her own time. Her physical stamina sucks, her speed is in real need of work, and her physical strength is just horrendous, except when she's mad for some reason. Yeah, for some reason Sakura always got abnormal strength when she was mad. Erokyofu, is there something in the female system that just gives them rage-induced strength? Why are you asking me this? Tsunade's right there. Jiraiya pointed at the large-breasted woman. I don't know. I just punch the hell out of shit when I'm mad. I never made an effort to research that. Naruto and Jiraiya sweat dropped at the response. An episode of silence then appeared on the ship as the two Sannin and Naruto gazed out at the open water. Tsunade then decided to go take a nap while Jiraiya and Naruto chose to work on a little taijutsu training on the deck. Hai no Kuni boating docks. After a few hours of sailing, the boat had arrived at the mainland and Tsunade, Shizen, Tonton and the Hokage's bodyguards headed off the ship first, followed by the Toad Sannin and his apprentice. So I'll see you in 2 years, Bachan. Naruto gave a small wave to the Hokage who waved in return. Sure thing, brat. Jiraiya, you've done one hell of a job training him so far, keep it up and I may hate you less. Jiraiya chuckled only to suddenly be picked up by his shirt. But you dare corrupt the boy with your perverted habits, and I'll tear you a new one, am I clear? Yes, Tsunade-heim. And then no worries. The taller Sannin whimpered and Tsunade gained a satisfied smirk on her face. Good. And with that, she rested him back on the ground. Oh, by the way, here's that mission request I managed to get for you two while Naruto was sleeping after his fight with the Kaguya boy. Tsunade reached into her Hokage robes and pulled out the scroll which had a large capital A on it, meaning it was an A-rank mission. You got us a mission, Kyofu? Naruto said with stars in his eyes. I did. I thought it would give us something to do while training on our way to Taki. Plus it'll give you a better chance at field work now that you're a chunin. Jiraiya said, pinching the whisker-marked Jinchuriki. You're the best, Naruto said as he leaped at Jiraiya. I know. Jiraiya said as his chest swelled with pride and awaited the force of his godson's hug. But his eyes widened when Naruto soared past him and slammed into Tsunade's ample bosom. You're the best, Bachan. To think you'd give me a mission to do. No problem, brat, Tsunade said as she patted his head. Tsunade then looked up and gave an evil smirk of victory at Jiraiya. The white-haired man growled in return as he glared at Tsunade's I am holier than thou gaze. The evil, big-boobed demon woman stealing his little godson's affections. Tsunade really was evil to the core. His glare sent unspoken words towards his fellow Sannin. You do realize this means war? Tsunade merely flipped him the bird. Have a safe trip, Naruto-kun, Shizen said with a wave, Tonton oinking his own farewell wishes to the blonde. Thanks, Nei-chan. Bye, Tonton. The two parties then went their separate ways with Tsunade heading back to Konoha and Jiraiya and Naruto heading for Yugagakure. Hai no Kuni country roads. The hyperactive Jinchuriki was bouncing with excitement in his mind. He knew he'd be traveling and training, but to receive an A-rank mission in the middle of it all was like icing on a cake, or extra pork with ramen. Speaking of ramen, Naruto realized he hadn't had any since he started his training in Uzushio. His stomach growled in agreement, roaring like a beast to dine upon the flesh that was noodle soaked with flavored broth. Alright, we'll stop here to eat, Jiraiya said, taking notice of Naruto's stomach noises. Naruto gave a sigh of relief and a nod of thanks as he and Jiraiya stepped off of the dirt path they were walking along to reach Yugakure and settled on the grasslands beside them underneath a large tree. After his clones supplied them with firewood by breaking down a few of the tree's branches, Naruto looked around, sniffing the air before frowning in disappointment. Kyofu, what are we going to hunt for though? There's nothing but grass here and from the time we spent walking, I hadn't seen or smelled any animals here, not even a rabbit. Naruto rubbed his stomach with a frown. A quail would be nice. Don't worry. We're not going to be hunting today because your old godfather's finally decided that it's time to eat food for ourselves. Naruto blinked. What? You mean you had food on you during our time in Uzuu and you didn't even use it? Oh? Calm down, Naruto. It was all in the spirit of training you. You learned how to hunt and fend for yourself in the wild, didn't you? Those forested areas of Yuzu-no-Kuni were too used to help you with that. Bullshit. You had food and you kept it to yourself. Naruto yelled, pointing accusingly at his godfather. I bet you even ate some of it after I risked my ass getting food for you. Jiraiya coughed as he turned away from the Jinchuriki. Naruto gaped in shock as he stared at the white-haired man with a look of betrayal on his face. You ate the food? No. I merely placed it in my stomach for safekeeping. I hate you. I hate you very much right now, Erokyofu. I can't even trust you to give me food. Alright, guess I'll just eat this ramen by myself then. Naruto's eyes widened. I bow to you, O mighty Jiraiya sensei, wooer of women, conqueror of evil, ruler of the Toad Sages of Mount Myaboku, Naruto said as he bowed down to Jiraiya. Jiraiya could only laugh at his young charge before reaching into his backpack and took out the scroll that opened to reveal the cup ramen. I got promoted to Chunin, Bachan got us a mission, and you got me ramen. This is the best day ever. Naruto laughed as he quickly performed a small-scale katan jutsu to light the firewood, and a suiton to apply water for his ramen. He hummed happily as he heated his ramen before digging in with the chopsticks that came with the cup of noodles. Jiraiya smiled with an evil glint in his eyes, mentally pumping his fist in victory. Haha, in your face, Tsunade. The boy is mine. Jiraiya suddenly began to laugh out loud like an evil madman, and Naruto could only watch with a confused look before returning to his beloved ramen. So, Erokyofu, what's the mission Bachan gave to us? He asked as he began drinking the broth from the cup. Jiraiya took out the A-ranked mission scroll and unfurled it before scanning through its contents. Well, it seems that we're heading for the capital. An escort mission. The person who is going to be escorted wishes to have shinobi bodyguards on their way to the capital. Did they say who we're protecting? Where are we meeting them? It's the daimyo's second eldest daughter. She's to meet us in Yugakure and requests Konoha shinobi to be used as her escort alongside the royal guard that went with her to Yugakure. But if she has a royal guard, why does she want shinobi help? Shouldn't the royal guard be enough? Naruto asked. Well, I am a Sannin and you are a Sannin's apprentice. Tsunade probably thought since we're already not in the village and on the way to an area close to the capital, that is, Taki, it would make sense to just send us with the mission and get it over with, I guess. Plus, Tsunade isn't particularly fond of sending away her shinobi to do missions for the daimyo, or his family, Jiraiya said as he continued to read the mission details. Why not? Do you know of the 12 Guardian Ninja? Jiraiya asked as he rolled up the scroll, having finished reading it. Naruto immediately shook his head. Not really, no. Well, they are 12 selected members from Hai no Kuni, not particularly shinobi from Konoha since monks from the Fire Temple and even highly capable fighters who are not shinobi are chosen. But doesn't that contradict the title of being a guardian ninja? Naruto said with a tilt of his head. Jiraiya shrugged before continuing, taking out a cup of ramen for himself and applying the same cooking method as Naruto had. These members make up the 12 Guardian Ninja, as I was saying. However, these chosen 12 must remain at the capital as long as they serve the daimyo, carrying all of the daimyo's wishes and protecting him and his family. The reason why Tsunade doesn't like to send out many shinobi for this kind of thing is because she ends up losing pretty good shinobi for a rather long period of time. Sarutobi Asuma was one such ninja, and Sarutobi-sensei was quite against his sons leaving for the capital. However, the daimyo has a silver tongue. Someone was able to negotiate against Ji-chan? Silver tongue indeed then, Naruto said with a genuinely shocked look. Yes, so when we perform this mission, when we arrive at the capital, try not to show off too much as his daughter may want to whisk you away to be one of the guardians, and I can tell you, daughters are very persuasive with their fathers and tend to get what they want. Understood, Erokyofu. Jiraiya nodded as he began to finish his own ramen cup. After eating, the two rose to their feet and headed down the trail to Yugakure to meet the daimyo's daughter. Yugakure no Sato Gate. Standing outside the gate of Yugakure was a young girl around 13 years old. Her hair was as black as night, same as her seemingly pupilless eyes. Her hair was tied into a bun shape with two chopstick-like needles impaling it. She was dressed in royal garb, which consisted of a dark blue kimono with white outlining the sleeves and lining the bottom. She wore a pair of dark blue sandals, and wrapped around her neck was a necklace with a golden charm that was made into the shape of the kanji for fire clutched within the jaws of a tiger, the symbol of the daimyo's household. A platoon of guards, about 12 strong, surrounded the young daughter of the daimyo as she stood in front of the door of the horse-drawn carriage which would serve as her mode of transportation. What is taking these shinobi from Konoha so long? The girl complained with a bored look on her face. Well, your father has only sent the request out 2 days ago, Mio-sama. An armored guard replied to the young daughter of the daimyo. Mio sighed, her dark, coal-colored eyes stared out beyond the gate of Yugakure. But it's been nearly half a day. You would think Konoha shinobi would be extremely quick when going to carry out their missions. Mio-sama, you must give the shinobi some credit at least. The border between Yugakure and Hai no Kuni is rather far from Kanehigakure no Sato. Even if they are shinobi, it would take at least a day to reach here. The guard explained to his mistress. Ah, Mio-sama, I see 2 figures approaching us from down the road. Perhaps those are the Konoha shinobi. A second guard exclaimed. Mio squinted as she watched the road and saw the 2 figures approaching. One is rather tall, but the other is quite small in comparison. Don't worry, Mio-sama. I am sure these shinobi are strong, intelligent, and highly respected individuals amongst the shinobi forces of Konoha. You should put more faith into the type of people that Hokage Tsunade-sama sends for your protection. Another guard said. Oi, get back here so I can your ass. Naya. That's what you get for not sharing the food Yaroke while few. You're still hung up on that? Never get between a man and his food. The guards looked at each other and sweat dropped. I can't help but wonder if to think they should be embarrassed, or if to agree with the short one. One guard said. The other guards nodded in agreement, while Mio just looked at her royal guard with a raised eyebrow. When the 2 figures approached the platoon of guards and Mio, their sweat drops began to grow larger, as they saw the young blonde shinobi running away from the large white-haired man whose face was covered in what looked to be mud and grass. At least, they hoped that it was just mud and grass and nothing else. Naruto then skidded to a halt as he stopped directly in front of the royal guard and Mio. The guards immediately stepped in front of Mio, their spears forming a protective X in front of her. As he saw a set of important-looking individuals, Naruto's mind quickly pieced together that this was probably their client along with her guards. Flashing through hand signs, Naruto quickly sent forth a stream of water followed by a gust of wind which nailed Jiraiya in the face, cleaning him off the grass and mud and drying him. Jiraiya sputtered out what water had gotten in his mouth before glaring at his young Chunin apprentice, halting just before his fist was about to smash down upon the blonde's head as he took notice of the company before them. You must be Mio-sama and her royal guard, I assume. Jiraiya stated. That we are. And you are? The guards asked with an uneasy tone of voice. If you could ignore the previous actions that took place before, I am Jiraiya of the Sannin. The Toad Sage said with a smirk as he saw the looks of shock on the guards' faces. And this is my apprentice, Uzumaki Naruto. Jiraiya patted said apprentice's head, flattening the gravity-defying locks of gold. Mio stared at the blonde Chunin with a gaze as if she were judging his life on a set of scales. Naruto shifted his annoyed gaze from his sensei to the young girl, and his annoyance became confused as he noticed her staring. What? Is there something on my face? Naruto asked as he pointed at himself. Mio quickly ducked her head, hiding the blush of embarrassment before lashing out with a slap. Naruto quickly ducked and avoided the barrage of palms that aimed to hit him. I wasn't staring, Baka! She yelled. Naruto quickly leaped back as the guards prevented their mistress from moving forward and injuring her new bodyguard member. Violent! Naruto muttered beneath his breath. Jiraiya then walked up to Naruto and planted his hand on his shoulder and leaned down to his ear. Listen, I have a few contacts here in Yugakure. I'm going to go meet with them and see if maybe anything on Akatsuki surfaced and also check in on some other taboo information not meant for your ears. You'll be escorting the daimyo's daughter by yourself for this mission, he whispered. Me alone? Naruto asked with a slightly nervous tone. An A-ranked mission done by oneself didn't sound very safe. But Jiraiya raised a hand, halting Naruto's speech. Listen, Naruto. The truth is that I got this mission so that you could get some experience performing a solo mission. I'm not going to hold your hand all the time, I've told you that before. I know you can do this. I believe in you, Jiraiya said as he patted his godson on the shoulder. Naruto stared into his godfather's black eyes before sighing with a nod. Alright, wait, you sure you're not going to peek at the women in the hot springs? This is the land of hot water after all, Hot water equals hot spring, and hot spring equals naked women for you to do your research on. Naruto whispered back with a deadpan expression. Jiraiya chuckled before ruffling the boy's hair. You're a smart kid. Figure it out. Naruto growled as he realized that his sensei was literally ditching him. But he knew his sensei wouldn't joke when it came to Akatsuki matters, so there was a form of truth in his words. To Mio-san? Yes, Jiraiya-sama? She acknowledged the powerful shinobi. I have some people I need to meet with in Yugakure here, so my apprentice here will be watching over you in my stead. Don't worry, he is a highly capable chunin. I will be the judge of that, Mio said with a cold tone. Naruto and Jiraiya looked at each other, and then back at the black-haired noblewoman. Oh, this girl was going to be a bundle of sugar, spice, and everything nice, wasn't she? He doesn't really look like much. He is rather short, and he looks no older than me. Mio chastised the blonde only for her to blink, and suddenly Naruto vanished from sight, and reappeared right next to her in the center of her guard's protective square. This square is much more spacious than it looks. No wonder you weren't cramped, he said nonchalantly. Mio's eyes widened as her royal guard suddenly reacted to their perimeter being broken through. Naruto vanished into the wind with a shunshin and reappeared atop the horse cart. Dost milady doubt my abilities now? Naruto winked at her. How dare you speak to me in such a manner? I am the daimyo's youngest daughter. You are. Naruto immediately caught his sensei's harsh gaze, and he took a deep breath to calm his tongue. Listen, Mio-san, I can take a lot of abuse, verbal or physical, no matter what shape or form. But I do not take kindly to people insulting my capabilities as a shinobi. I've seen more blood than you would see in a lifetime in your capital. Trust me, I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe on your journey back to the capital. Mio looked away, a light pink dusting her cheeks as she blushed beneath the boy's gaze. It is Mio-sama. I am the noble daughter of the daimyo, and you shall use the proper titles when addressing me. She sighed. However, your speed does indeed show your capabilities are not mere words from that of Jiraiya-sama. Thank you. Now, Ero Kyofu, I believe you have your business to attend to, Naruto said with gritted teeth, knowing full well that his sensei planned to leave him alone on the way to the capital. Don't call me that in public, brat, Jiraiya growled before walking through the gate to Yugakure. Naruto leaped off of the horse carriage before landing on the ground in a crouch. So shall we be off, Mio-san? He asked as he rose to his feet. Mio-sama! She yelled at him as she climbed into her cart. Shall we be off, Mio-sama? He said with a forced smile, his eyebrow twitching. Already this girl was getting on his nerves, and 5 minutes hadn't even passed yet. This is gonna be a long escort. I just hope the daimyo is willing to pay me and Ero Kyofu after this. I think she likes you, Kamina said. What? Kurama's laughter filled his mind as he began to curse a myriad of words that would make even Tsunade blush. Hai no Kuni country roads. Naruto clasped his hands behind his head as he walked alongside the carriage. The clopping of the horses' hooves on the dirt path and the simultaneous steps of the dozen royal guards made a time signature that led to Naruto beginning to hum a song. The blonde bobbed his head from side to side in time with the steps of man and horse, and he continued to hum. Stop humming, Mio said with a commanding tone. Naruto's eyes twitched. This felt like the millionth time he was told to stop doing something. First he couldn't kick rocks, then he couldn't step on ants, then he couldn't whistle, and now he couldn't even HUM. As you wish, Mio-sama, he managed to say without growling. Hayato-san? She called out. One of the 3 rear guards ran up beside the young girl's carriage window and gave her a small bow as he walked. Yes, Mio-sama? How long would it take to reach back to the capital? At this rate, Mio-sama, we should reach back by tomorrow morning. Excellent, then would it be possible to pick up the pace then? I would advise against that, Mio-sama. And why should we not go faster? I want to go faster, she screamed childishly. Because the faster you go, the more noise the horses will make as they move faster, and thus make you more noticeable to attack from any bandit that may be on these paths. Also, it will lead to your guards, who are traveling on foot I might add, becoming extremely tired since they will be required to move faster, and thus it would lead to a greater setback to you reaching back to your home. Naruto explained before Hayato could respond. Mio glared at the blonde before turning to Hayato. We move faster right now. Did you not hear what I just said? Naruto yelled. You do not talk to me in such a manner, Uzumaki-san. You may be a shinobi, but you are still beneath a noble such as myself. Learn to respect your superiors. I take back what I said. She's a brat. Kamina said. Kamina-sensei, just shut up. Naruto said to the Raijuu. I would agree with our brat. What on earth made you think she liked him? Kurama said. I thought she was being tsundere. Silence met Raijuu's response. Naruto's ears twitched as he picked up the rustling of the bushes that ran along the sides of the road as they began to journey closer to the forest roads. With amazing accuracy and precision that could only come from extreme amounts of training and practice, a kunai found its way into Naruto's hand from his pouch, and he let it fly through the air. The wind chakra he instinctively added to the blade made it hum as it tore through the air and into the brush, slicing through the bush as if it were made of hot butter. What was that? One of the side guards who stood with Naruto asked. The carriage stopped and Mio watched her shinobi bodyguard with curiosity as he continued to stare at the bushes. Naruto didn't answer the guard's question as he went into the bushes and retrieved his kunai. However, he found nothing as he pulled the blade from the ground. He sniffed the air and his sensitive sense of smell picked up on the scents of the area. He gestured to the guards to keep moving and the hooves of the horses continued as the royal guard and Mio moved forth. Naruto remained still for a while, his eyes narrowed. Hai no Kuni Forest. Within the expanse of greenery that was the forest of the Land of Fire, there lay a large bandit encampment. At least 50 bandits made up the entirety of the population of these cutthroat bastards. The men laughed as they drank and ate, chatting amongst themselves on the forest floor or sleeping within their respective tents. In the center of the encampment lay a large white tent, larger than all the others. Within the tent was the leader of the bandits, garbed in all black just like his subordinates. His brown hair was short, but straight. His eyes were deep green and his physique was large. Broad shoulders, large triceps, bulging biceps, all the makings of a man who depended purely on strength. Beside the table he sat behind, a single double-blades axe was embedded in the earth. The weapon was made of black iron, its curved blade shone by the light of the sun that peeked through the folds of cloth of the tent, making the steel glow like silver. The leader chomped down on a piece of rabbit meat rather noisily, but his meal was interrupted as one of his subordinates ran through the tent's opening. The leader raised an eyebrow as he looked at the underling before him. Kensei-sama, I have news for you. What is it? Kensei-sama, I was scouting the country roads leading from Yugakure. The young daughter of the daimyo, Mio, is heading our way. Though I guess it would have been understood she is heading our way since the only way to reach the capital is through the forest paths. The subordinate said. The leader, now named Kensei, munched much slower on his rabbit meat as he contemplated what to do. She is the daimyo's daughter. She would fetch a hefty price in exchange for her survival from the daimyo. Kensei chuckled. How heavily is she guarded? 12 guards and there was one boy, probably in his teens, but he wore a chunin vest and had the hitite of Konoha. The leader snorted. I knew the daimyo would hire shinobi as guards as a precautionary measure, but only one chunin? And a boy at that. Looks like we'll be getting an easy kill today. Tell the men to prepare themselves, we're going hunting. Yes, Kensei-sama. It took the rest of the day to reach the forest border. By the time the sun had set, they were already deep into the brush that the trees began to cast large shadows. Uzumaki-san, being the shinobi here, you have camped out in the wilderness before. Where do you suggest we set up camp? Hayato asked. Naruto sniffed the air before applying chakra to his feet and ran up the side of a tree. From his new vantage point, he surveyed the area before spotting a large area that was covered only by grass and was large enough to house the carriage, horses, and whatnot. Move forward, approximately half a mile. There's a clearing there that would be good to set up camp. Naruto informed Hayato as he dropped down from his perch. Hayato nodded and gave the orders to the other guards, and the horses carried the carriage to the intended location. Hayato-san, explain something to me, Naruto said. The head of Nyo's royal guard looked at the shorter male with a questioning look. Why is it that you ask for advice on camping out? If it took at least a day to reach from the capital to Yugakure, then should you not have been capable of setting up encampments in forested areas? Well, Uzumaki-san, I have watched over Myo-sama since she was very young, and I was her personal bodyguard. I watched over her throughout the entirety of the time she lived within the capital. However, because she is of noble blood, she was never left outside of the capital. Given that she is now in her teenage years, her father, the daimyo, saw fit that it was time for Myo-sama to be able to venture out of the walls of the capital and see some other areas outside of it. Sounds like a typical teenage girl heading to the closest area to home on her first night out, Naruto mused. Exactly, but it was actually much quicker to reach Yugakure from the capital since we actually had 3 dozen of us guarding her. 3 dozen? You mean you lost 2 dozen men on the way to Yugakure? Naruto exclaimed. Hayato nodded in shame. I am deeply sorry for not telling you, but I assumed that you would be aware of the risks of watching over Myo-sama for this escort mission since we labeled it as an A rank. No. It's not that. I was very well aware that we may run into some bandits, or maybe some stupid people who think they could get lucky by robbing the horse carriage, but to lose 2 dozen men in a single day, just what the hell were you guys fighting? A large bandit camp. They were 70 strong and they knew their way around the forest, so they had field advantage along with numbers. We managed to take down at least 20 or so before we managed to escape with Myo-sama, but by the time we cleared the forests, we had already lost too many of our own. Naruto's eyes narrowed and his eyes flashed crimson as his rage spiked. Well, you did the right thing aiming to protect Myo-san rather than trying to take on the bandit horde. However, don't worry, I will make sure to keep Myo-san safe when we make camp. You have my deepest thanks, Uzumaki-san. However, I think Myo-sama may have heard you say her name. She's glaring at you right now. Naruto turned away from Hayato and looked at the raven-haired girl. Yes, Myo-sama? Naruto questioned the girl with a smirk. Myo's eyes narrowed, but with a huff she turned away from the blonde. Are you sure she's not being tsundere? Kamina asked. Shut up. Naruto and Kurama roared at the Raijuu. Once the camp was made, Myo's sleeping tent was set up and all 12 guards formed the perimeter around her tent while Naruto lay in the trees above, scanning the area for any sign of this bandit horde Hayato had mentioned to him earlier. Footsteps landed beside him and Naruto instantly whipped out a kunai, but paused at his potential victim's throat when he saw it was merely one of his clones. Whoa there, boss. I know you're hyped up and stuff, but be careful with that thing. Sorry. Anyway, did you see anything? Naruto asked. If I did, I would have dispelled instantly and sent you the information. However, you did dispatch at least 50 of us to scan the forests. Don't you think it's weird that we haven't seen any of these bandits, if there were any? The Kage Bunshin asked with a tilt of its head. True, it is strange that we haven't found anything yet, but Erokyofu always said paranoia was a ninja's friend most of the time. Ain't that the truth? The clone muttered. Well, I'm gonna go back and take another look. You good here, boss? Naruto nodded and his clone vanished in a swirl of wind and spark of lightning. Seems the Raijuu arc, Shunshin was working much more decently now. A few hours passed, the moonlight shone down from between the leaves of the forest canopy and Naruto watched down below as he saw some of the guards switch out for shifts to watch over Myo. The daimyo's daughter was sleeping soundly from what he could tell. A gentle night breeze blew through the air and navigated through Naruto's. The heir to the Uzumaki and Namake's names took a deep inhalation, breathing in the wind. His eyes snapped open as he did so. Something's not right, he thought. He sniffed the air once more. Trees, dirt, leaves, insects, and human? He had already remembered the scent of the armor the royal guards always seemed to wear, so it blended with their scents, but these were dirty, foul, and stank of blood. Hayato-san! Naruto yelled down to the iron-armored man. The head captain turned to see Naruto drop down with a panicked look on his face, and Hayato quickly responded. Protect Miyu-sama, he ordered. The 11 guards immediately formed an even tighter circle around the daimyo's daughter's tent. Naruto cursed as his eyes became slitted like Kurama's. He quickly flashed through hand signs and released a pulse of chakra. Fuinjutsu, Naken! A large barrier suddenly formed out of thin air as seals that Naruto had drawn upon the trees surrounding the camp glowed with blue light. The barrier then released a dull thunk as the sound of an object impacting it. Turning in the direction of the sound, Naruto and Hayato stared at the black-garbed bandit, but then their eyes shifted to the sides and suddenly they found themselves encircled by the bandits. 25 bandits had them surrounded and only a single barrier lay between them and their target, Mio. Naruto quickly formed a hand sign and dispelled all of his clones that he had sent out earlier, and their memories rushed back to him. A small migraine formed, but he quickly got over it as he shifted his focus from the pain to the current problem at hand. Uzumaki-san, they outnumber us 2-1. I suggest you make your clones and drive them away, Hayato said as he gripped his spear tightly. I would too, but I'm currently supplying my chakra to keep the barrier up. I can't divert the flow, otherwise the whole ceiling array will break due to being so delicate, and it doesn't help that these guys are banging on it. I may have a large amount of chakra to spare, but I'm not gonna keep this up all night. Do something to get them away, stab them, Naruto yelled. But wouldn't your barrier block our attacks? Hayato yelled back. The barrier is designed to let things within it out, and also to keep things from outside from getting in. Now shut up, and go stab the hell out of those bastards. Hayato nodded, and with a battle cry, he and 2 other guards ran forth and stabbed forth through the barrier and impaled a bandit through the chest. The bandit coughed up blood, staining the glowing blue barrier crimson before he died. Another got his throat slit, and a third was hit by a side swing, and before he knew it, his head was sent soaring through the air like a comet with a tail of blood. The bandits immediately backed up as they saw 3 of their own fall to fangs of steel. The bandits snarled at the blonde shinobi as if they were wolves and retreated back into the darkness of the forest. Is it over? One guard asked. The question was answered as a tiny beep was heard. The sound may have been small, but to Naruto's ears, it was positively deafening. Oh no! Hit the deck! Hayato and the other 11 guards all gazed in shock as the blue barrier suddenly glowed that much brighter, but the bright flash of orange and yellow marked the setting off explosive charges that had been set off around the ceiling barrier's perimeter. Naruto concentrated deeply as he pumped his chakra into keeping the barrier stable and prevent it from breaking apart. When the explosions died down, the earth stopped shaking and Naruto stood on slightly wobbly knees. He put a lot of chakra into the barrier, and to deflect the force of a high number of explosions that all occurred simultaneously with enough force to have blown the entire area into a burning ashland was no doubt a bit draining on the Jinchurikis. Chakra reserves. However, the sound of what appeared like glass shattering met Naruto's ears. Kyuso, they broke one of the trees where I drew one of the seals. The whole thing is ruined! Naruto cursed. The blonde panted as he wiped the sweat from his brow. The barrier suddenly gained cracks and vanished into thin air as the sound of glass shattering met everyone's ears. There was a period of silence, and suddenly the roar of the 25 bandits was heard as they tore through the brush and into the encampment. Hayato and the other 11 members of the royal guard quickly retaliated and made haste to counter the bandits. Naruto growled as he took out his ninjato, and it hummed as it became coated with wind chakra. One bandit came down with a knife in hand, but Naruto easily batted it away before impaling his opponent through the throat. In one clean motion, he spun, slicing the man's neck open, causing his body to bleed out heavily before going with the momentum of his spin and went into an upward slice that cleaved a man's face in 2. With a kick, he sent the bandit through the air and crashed into 3 others. 2 bandits quickly took out one of the royal guards as they slit his throat and stabbed him through the stomach, piercing the battered armor. Shoving the man aside, the 2 bandits entered Mio's tent and looked down at the shivering lump that lay beneath the covers. The 2 bandits chuckled to themselves before ripping off the purple sheets, but their smiles quickly became looks of shock as they stared at the laughing form of one Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. Gotcha! Was all the laughing blonde stated before he snapped his fingers. Hai no Kuni, other part of the forest. Blum! The loud explosion echoed throughout the atmosphere as a tower of black smoke and red flame tore through the air. See, I told you that the decoy would work. Naruto grinned down at Mio as he held her bridal style, leaping from tree to tree as he carried her. Shut up. The daimyo's daughter pouted cutely, shifting uncomfortably in Naruto's arms. Stop squirming. I'm gonna drop you if you keep doing that. You threaten me? It's not a threat, doofus. It's a fact. You insult me too? Hayato-san. Mio called out to her head guard, but she received no aid. Her eyebrow raised as she glanced back at her head guard. As you can see, Hayato-san is very busy at the moment. Naruto turned to the 12 clones that each carried a member of the royal guard, one of which was Hayato. I apologize for Uzumaki-san's rudeness, but he does have a point, Mio-sama. If you keep doing that, he may drop you in the process. Hayato said, sweat dropping as Mio glared at him for not saving her from Naruto. You guys okay back there? Naruto asked them. We're fine, Uzumaki-san. Hayato responded along with the rest of his fellow guards. I must admit, that was quite a well-thought-out plan. Classic misdirection. Create transformed clones and then have us go in one direction while the clones go in the other. Make the clones make more noise and whatnot to attract more attention to them, and voila. We escaped scot-free. Naruto said with a cheeky grin. Thank you, thank you. Please hold your applause. Mio snorted in amusement, and Naruto's eyes widened when he heard her. Did you just laugh? No. Her amused look immediately returned to stoic and emotionless. And I thought you hated me, but you're really just a little girl underneath that fancy robe, aren't ya? Naruto chuckled. Mio blushed heavily in embarrassment. I do hate you. You insult me and threaten to drop me, not to mention I lost my favorite horse carriage and tent in the process of your brilliant plan. Mio complained. Naruto rolled his eyes. Oh, don't be like that. You know you love me, he said with a joking tone. Baka! He was hit upside the head as Mio lashed out with a kick. However, while she was satisfied with making violence-based contact with the blonde Chunin's body, Mio had actually forgotten the fact that she was not on flat ground, and so her kick resulted in Naruto's grip on her slipping and she fell. Amayu-sama! Hayato and his guards yelled out in alarm. Stupid girl. I told her not to squirm. Naruto frowned before channeling chakra into his feet as he landed on a branch. His forward momentum allowed him to fall forward, and he now hung upside down on the branch's underside before he bent his knees and he took off towards his descending client. Mio screamed her head off as she fell. Her screams continued as she curled tightly into a ball, but she stopped when she realized she hadn't hit the ground yet. Her cold black eyes opened and she glanced around and found herself once more in the arms of her shinobi bodyguard. I told you not to squirm, Mio-san. Stop being stupid and acting so spoiled. Naruto gave the young girl a harsh stare, but she wasn't really paying attention to that as she was too busy staring at him. Apparently Naruto was positioned directly behind the moon, so his face was outlined by a silvery glow, and his eyes seemed to pop, making them rather attractive. His blonde locks wavered slightly in the night breeze. Wow! She blushed lightly. Huh! Naruto tilted his head in confusion. Wow, what? I wasn't staring, she yelled as she lashed out with a kick again. However, Naruto dodged this one as he leaped back up the side of the trees to rejoin his clones and their passengers. I told you, stop kicking me. Do you want to fall? Mio immediately halted in her action to kick him again and frowned. She sighed before adjusting herself properly, and wrapped her hands around his neck so that she wouldn't be able to slip again. Fine. But I'm not listening to you simply because you told me to, she said with her blush intensifying slightly. Naruto noticed her reddening facial features, but blamed it on the cold of the night air. However, as soon as Naruto and his clones had cleared the forest, they quickly froze as they came face to face with the remaining faction of the bandits. What? That's impossible, I just blew you guys up, Naruto yelled. That was only some of my forces sent there. My scouts found your little diversion, but since we were unsure as to which was the actual set of people, I decided to go with my gut and meet you out here at the edge of the forest. Looks like my gut was right after all, the large, muscular man at the front of the bandits said. I'm guessing you're their leader? Naruto asked. Aye, that I am. Name's Kensei, the brown-haired man said as he twirled his double-bladed battle axe. Now if you would be so kind as to hand over the girl in your arms there, we'll be on our way. Naruto clutched the girl tighter to his body and Neo stared in fear as she looked into the fierce green eyes of the enemy leader. Well, listen here, Kensei. You're not touching Neo-san at all. Naruto jumped back as his 12 clones rested the royal guards on the ground and all 24 battle-ready men prepared for battle as the original Naruto hung back with Neo. Neo hid behind Naruto's taller visage, clutching his sleeve tightly. Don't worry, Mio-san. The blonde glanced back and his blue eyes met her black ones. No one's going to hurt you. Hayato-san and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Neo gulped and nodded. Naruto's clones and the royal guards tore through the untrained forces of the bandit horde. However, as the numbers dropped to below 15, the bandits began to group together and team up on their enemies. One guard raised his spear to take on 2 bandits, but as he blocked the sword of one, the other had landed on the ground, falling short intentionally in order to slip past his guard and stab the armored guardian in his throat. Blood leaked through his mouth and neck wound and he fell to the ground dead. As the guard fell, a Naruto clone came through and sliced the air with his tanto. Uzumaki Ryu, Kazujiri. A crescent of wind literally tore through the 2 bandits and sliced them in 2. Another 4 bandits leaped at their adversaries, but the royal guards held up their spears and caught 3 in midair, their spears impaling them through the stomachs. The 4th, however, got bifurcated as Hayato swung his spear in an upward arc. The 2 halves fell to the ground in a pile of flesh and blood. One bandit aimed for one of the royal guards behind their backs, but one clone took the fall and blocked the attack. When the clone vanished as smoke, the guard immediately spun and swung his spear, stabbing the tip into the assailant's stomach before kicking him off of the blade. All right, I'm done playing around, Hayato said as he watched the remaining 8. He charged forth and stabbed one in the stomach before twisting to the side so that his spear sliced the man open. Going with the momentum of his twist, Hayato twirled his spear and swung it into another skull, cracking it with the side of the wooden handle. Throwing his spear forth, it struck through 2 more like they were kebabs and afterwards, he ran and performed a pole vault with the thrown spear before kicking another bandit in the jaw, sending him to the ground. Hayato then withdrew his spear from the 2 he had impaled upon it before killing off the remainder of the grunt forces. Kensei remained silent as he had watched his remaining faction fall at the hands of the royal guard and Naruto. With a sigh, Kensei withdrew his axe from the ground. You know, this could have been so much easier if you'd just given me the girl, Kensei said. Suddenly, green eyes snapped open, blazing with battle lust, and soon Kensei took off at speeds which seemed unlikely for a man of his size. Though muscular, Naruto didn't think the man would have been able to move quickly since the muscle would have slowed the bandit leader down. Apparently we were wrong. With a roar, Kensei swung his axe and tore through the armor of one guard like it was made of hot butter before spinning and slamming the flat of his axe against the side of another's head. 3 of Naruto's Kage Bunshins leaped at their adversary with their wind chakra-enhanced tantos drawn, but Kensei moved as if he were an agile feline. He struck the hand of one clone, causing it to drop its clone blade before it was struck with a kick to the jaw. Kensei then jumped and went into a backflip before crashing down his massive body atop the second clone. The 3rd didn't even have time to react as the axe sliced it into a smoke cloud. Kensei chuckled as he twirled his axe nonchalantly. Who's next? The remainder of the Naruto clones rushed forth, aiming to surround the large man and strike from all sides. However, Kensei spun as if he were a twister of steel, and suddenly there was a flash of silver and a ring of smoke surrounded Kensei as the Kage Bunshins were dispelled by his strikes. For Miyu-sama! The remaining guards yelled. No, don't! Hayato told his subordinate guards, but the head captain's words fell on deaf ears as the men's battle cries drowned him out. Kensei watched as the armored men charged towards him with the intent to put him down. However, one spear was grabbed from his hands and stabbed into his face. Another got his arm sliced off by the axe before getting slashed across the stomach. The axe was like a flash of black and silver beneath the light of the moon, and Hayato and Naruto were soon to be the only ones left as Kensei tore through the guards and Naruto's clones. Myo cowered behind Naruto still, and Naruto quickly drew his tanto and formed another barrage of clones in order to see if there was a pattern in the man's attacks as he fought. However, when the clones went down, Naruto's eyes widened as he saw that Kensei had no style of attack when he struck forth with the axe. He just swung it comfortably in whatever way it seemed to suit him in the current situation. This is dangerous. I can't use too many clones as I had used up quite a bit of chakra when I made the decoy clones, these clones, and actually supplying chakra to my clones so that it could keep that barrier Fuinjutsu active during that ambush before. This man is a fighting genius with the battle axe, and it doesn't help that I have Hayato-san and Myo-san to protect as well. Kaige Bunshin no Jutsu. 30 clones puffed into existence, each one armed to the teeth as they drew forth kunai and shuriken. Hurling the metal weapons at Kensei, they aimed to strike him down quickly. However, Kensei chuckled darkly before swinging the large, double-bladed weapon in a wide arc that deflected all of the smaller weapons, peppering the dirt with the pointy objects. Hayato charged forth and aimed to stab Kensei in the stomach, but he was deflected by the brown-haired man's upward swing, putting him out in the open. You are rather skilled, both of you it seems. But I am much better than any of you. Weapons cannot harm me, for I am Kensei the Repulsor. Kensei roared. Naruto's eyes widened as he heard the man shout out his name and title. Naruto's mind flashed to the information he had read in the bingo book Jiraiya had him read. Kensei the Repulsor. An XIWA nin with the Kekei Genkai for Jiten. Is a B-ranked nuke nin and is capable of wielding nearly any type of weaponry, and with Jiten, cannot be harmed by weaponry as he repels them all with the magnetic forces. Naruto recalled the information. He shook his head as he heard the sounds of spear against axe, and he saw Hayato get repulsed once more as Kensei deflected it. However, Naruto noticed that when Kensei swung the axe to deflect it, the axe never touched the spearhead. So he truly does use magnetic forces to repel the metal parts. Naruto thought. Hayato gave a battle cry and swung at Kensei's torso, but the spear was deflected again, sending it upwards and leaving the guard captain open to attack. You have skill, but it is time you die. Kensei roared as he brought down his weapon. Clang! Kensei's eyes widened as he saw Naruto gritting his teeth in an effort to hold back the axe's blow with his tanto. Sparks flew forth from the friction between the two weapons. Kensei growled as he watched the blonde Chunin. You annoying little worm. I will have the girl. Kensei yelled before Naruto's blade was repelled, but as Naruto and his sword were repelled, Kensei's eyes widened as he saw the thin film of chakra surrounding Naruto's own. No! He exclaimed. Naruto's blade released the humming and buzzing sounds of wind chakra and lightning chakra application, respectively. The sharp, high-frequency vibrating blade sliced off a large portion of the left half of the double-bladed axe, and Kensei could only growl in rage. Kensei kicked Hayato in the stomach before spinning and slashing the head captain of Myo's guard horizontally across the chest. Hayato was then punched in the face and floored by an elbow strike to the skull. Once Hayato lay on the ground, Kensei turned away to attack Naruto. A forceful downward swing was avoided and Naruto went in for a stab to the ribs. However, Kensei repelled it with his axe before slamming a knee into Naruto's face before spinning on his heel to build up momentum before crashing a devastating roundhouse kick to the chest of the blonde Chunin. Naruto flew through the air towards the trees of the forest he had escaped through earlier, but he flipped in midair and planted his feet firmly against the side of the bark. Chakra flowed through his legs as he pushed off, snapping the bark and zoomed towards Kensei. The axe wielder's eyes widened as he found Naruto's tanto buried into his stomach. The man coughed up a glob of blood, but Naruto hadn't really hit anything truly vital since the blonde was aiming to mainly cause damage instead of going for the kill. He punched Naruto down to the ground by landing the crushing blow to the blue-eyed boy's skull. A small dust cloud formed and Naruto coughed slightly before he rolled to the side as he felt an object descend towards him. Kensei had removed Naruto's tanto from his bleeding stomach and aimed to use it against him. The man now held two weapons and he began to slice away at Naruto with seemingly expert-level usage. Naruto quickly formed a Kage Bunshin to take the blow aimed at him from the Tanto before rolling between Kensei's legs when the downward, vertical slice from the axe came upon him. After getting through Kensei's legs, Naruto popped up and lashed out with a kick, nailing the brown-haired Jitan user in the spine. The green-eyed man stumbled forward, but he reacted quickly and performed a back slice with the Tanto that sliced through Naruto's 3 clones that aimed to kill the dangerous Nuke Nin with their triple Rasengan attack. However, with them being dispelled by Kensei's attack, the attack had failed and Naruto was quickly forced back when he began to flip, jump and twist to avoid the strikes aimed to decapitate or dismember him. However, Naruto was caught on his lower leg as a quick slash from his own Tanto sent him to one knee. Kensei then smirked as he raised the axe high above his head at the defenseless Naruto. However, Naruto grinned and suddenly exploded in a cloud of smoke. Rasengan! Naruto dove down from above, the spiraling orb of destruction in his hand. However, his eyes widened as Kensei crossed his axe and Tanto in front of his body and took the attack head-on. Naruto grunted in effort, but he knew he would fail. His Tanto had been reinforced with seals to make it unbreakable to the point that not even the Rasengan was capable of breaking it. The Rasengan exploded and both combatants flew away from each other. Naruto skidded on the ground before coming to a stop and Kensei stood tall, the weapons he held having taken the brunt of the impact. However, Kensei's eyes widened when suddenly he felt something go through his back and out of his chest. Having aimed to take advantage of Kensei's focus on Naruto, the wounded Hayato panted as he rose to his feet, using his spear as a makeshift crutch. The armored head guard clutched his spear tightly, and with a loud battle cry, he charged at the muscular bandit with all the speed he could muster. The spear stabbed into the larger man's body and struck into his back, going through and through as it tore through the right lung and out of the chest. Kensei coughed up a large amount of blood. However, as Hayato smirked in victory, his eyes widened when he saw the bandit raise his arm before slicing the spearhead off cleanly with the remainder of his left axe blade. With his body no longer being held in place by Hayato's impalement, the green-eyed Nuke Nin twisted before kicking Hayato in the chest, sending him stumbling backwards, and with a simple twist of his hand, the unharmed right side of the axe was swung upwards and carved a deep gash into Hayato's body. Blood flew forth from the deep wound and Nyo gaped in horror as she saw her friend and guard bleed. Hayato! The young girl screamed and cried out to the armor-covered man, but he did not move. Naruto rose up to his feet and his eyes widened as he saw Hayato fall. His body was coated with the crimson liquid of life. Naruto stared at Hayato's body, then at the crying and screaming Neo, and finally at the cause of all this. Kensei the repulsor would die tonight. Naruto released a bestial roar, his eyes flashing crimson as he climbed to his feet. Kensei's and Neo's eyes widened as they saw the wind kick up around Naruto's form as he stood back to his feet. Kensei! Naruto roared. A pulse of chakra exited his mouth as he roared, and Kensei could gape in shock as he was hit full force by the chakra pulse roar. The attack sent him soaring through the air and made him lose his grip on his weapons. Naruto, however, caught his Tanto as he sped towards the flying Nuke Nin, and in a blur of speed, appeared in front of the soaring man. A harsh rising kick sent Kensei skyward before Naruto leaped after his foe. A barrage of punches and kicks sent the two higher into the air before Naruto grabbed onto the larger man's shoulder, and used them to hoist himself up higher than his opponent before he brought down a devastating axe kick upon Kensei. Kensei fell to earth, but Naruto fell after him. Sheathing his Tanto, Naruto's body sparked with lightning and the wind swirled around his body as he activated the bloodline of the Raijuu he held. Raijuu Arc, Sorishin! Naruto reared back his fist and brought it down with enough force to cause a crater as he and Kensei met the ground. Naruto's fist didn't even stop at the skin as the wind and lightning tore through Kensei's body, ripping through his stomach and crushing the part of his spine Naruto had made contact with. The ground shook as if an earthquake were taking place, and Neo watched in awe at the majesty of the attack as a pulse of lightning and a wave of wind shattered the earth with the force of Naruto's attack. Naruto panted as he rose to his feet and stared at his bloodied arm as he removed it from Kensei's body. Naruto steeled his nerves, but he still shuddered once he realized he had just killed somebody. Naruto then walked away from the body and saw Mio, who was previously watching him, shift her gaze back to Hayato as she was standing over Hayato's body, shaking uncontrollably. When he reached the girl's location, he could only frown when he saw her. He didn't know what to do. Having no parents, he never knew how to deal with any kind of situation and was capable of winging it, but for this kind of thing, he really had no idea what to do. Consoling was not one of his strong suits. Myo-san, Naruto felt the words stick in his throat when he saw her red eyes. Myo gulped before rising to her feet and walking over to Naruto. She stared at the ground and sniffled loudly in front of him. He said that he wouldn't be able to make it. He's dead, but he said to keep living for his sake. She stuttered out. And he said that you shouldn't blame yourself and that I shouldn't blame you, and Naruto, for him dying. Myo's fists clenched tightly. But who else am I supposed to blame? You were the shinobi, why couldn't you help him? Naruto looked down at the ground and he was suddenly caught off guard when Myo ran into his chest and clutched his shirt. Why? Hayato. Naruto gulped as he slowly wrapped his arms around the daimyo's daughter. Myo-san, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I failed to protect your precious person. Myo continued to cry for a few more hours before she fell asleep in Naruto's arms. The blonde Jinchuriki formed a clone and had it seal the bodies of Hayato and the other royal guards into separate scrolls so as to deliver them to the daimyo to be buried. Naruto then rose up to his feet and trudged along the path that led towards the capital, clutching the sleeping Myo tightly. His clone follows dutifully behind its creator. The next day. Hi-no Kuni capital city entrance. Naruto sighed as he walked up to the entrance of the capital city where a numerous number of guards and the daimyo himself awaited him and Myo. Oh my! Shinobi-san, you're covered in blood. Is my daughter all right? The daimyo asked as he looked over his daughter's sleeping form and Naruto's blood-covered one. Yes, daimyo-sama. Though. The kage bunshin Naruto carried with him held out the scroll where Myo's guards' bodies were stored. These are Myo-san's royal guards. The 1 dozen that had originally come with her. The daimyo's face gained a look of shock. 1 dozen? But I had originally sent out 3 dozen. Hayato-san said that 2 were lost on the Yugakure. These last 12, Hayato-san included, they died in combat protecting Myo-san. Oh my! The daimyo's mouth transformed into a frown, but his eyes widened as he saw the young man that held his daughter suddenly begin to shake. Shinobi-san? Naruto fell to his knees clutching Myo to his body. Daimyo-sama, I wish to beg for your forgiveness. The noble commander of Hi-no Kuni stared in shock at the blonde Chunin. For what? The daimyo asked. I was tasked with protecting your daughter's convoy and I lost all of her royal guard members. I truly am sorry. I failed the mission. I failed as an apprentice of Jiraiya of the Sannin. Naruto wished to personify his rage and regret at being unable to protect Hayato and the other royal guards, but he held it all back. His body shook as if it were about to burst. Shinobi-san. The daimyo muttered. The elderly-looking man bent down and patted Naruto on the shoulder. The mission was to protect my daughter, was it not? Naruto nodded. Yes, daimyo-sama. Then, you have not failed the mission. And besides, this was an A-ranked mission, Shinobi-san. Even if you are the apprentice of a Sannin and a Chunin, you cannot go through any mission and not have casualties within them in some shape or form. Naruto didn't respond as he merely stood there. The daimyo had one of the guards take his daughter from Naruto's arms, and those arms suddenly fell limply to his sides. As this happened, a plume of smoke appeared next to Naruto and Jiraiya stood next to his apprentice with a small smile. Yo, brat! I'm Wo. The white-haired man looked at his apprentice's blood-covered body, namely his right arm which was covered up to the elbow in it. Jiraiya turned around and saw the daimyo standing there with a worried look on his face as he watched Naruto. Jiraiya-sama, your charge is rather tired and has suffered a bit of an ordeal when protecting my daughter. I suggest you let him rest and cleanse himself here in the capital before you head off to wherever it is you may be going. The daimyo suggested. I think that would be best, thank you, daimyo-sama. The toad Sannin nodded to the robe-garbed man. Jiraiya picked up the frozen blonde since it seemed he was incapable of moving on his own, and followed the daimyo through the capital to reach the royal baths allowed for the daimyo and his family, as well as cordially invited guests. Thanking the nobleman once more, Jiraiya took the seemingly comatose blonde into the baths and helped to wash him free of the blood that covered his body. After that was done, he watched as Naruto slowly put his clothes back. When it was done, Naruto and Jiraiya sat within the guest bedroom the daimyo had within his mansion. Jiraiya's head snapped down at his young charge. Naruto, look at me. Jiraiya knelt down to the blonde's height so that he could look him in the eyes. Erokyofu? Naruto asked as if he were talking to a ghost. Yes, Naruto, it's me. It's Erokyofu, your stupid, perverted godfather who was too stupid to realize that I shouldn't have kept you alone on an A-rank mission. Jiraiya tried to joke with his student, but he got no reply from the melancholy shinobi. Naruto, look at me. He grabbed Naruto's face and forced the blonde to look at him. What happened out there? Naruto remained silent before looking at his godfather with a seemingly dead look in his eyes. I let people die, sensei. I could have saved them, maybe if I had used more clones to fight, maybe if I had been able to assess the severity of the situation when I fought Kensei the Repulsor, I would have been able to save Hayato-san and the others, and Nyo-san wouldn't have been in this state. Jiraiya's eyes widened when he heard Naruto mention the B-rank nuke nin from Iwagakure. Though Naruto was strong, it was practically impossible for a recently turned Chunin, no matter what, to be able to take on a highly skilled shinobi like Kensei without suffering some casualties. Naruto, it's okay. People die, it happens. But I could have. We all wish we could save everyone we are required to protect Naruto, but we can't. I know how you feel, I really do. I felt the same way you did when your father died fighting the Kyuubi all those years ago, but you learned to live with them. They'll help make you emotionally stronger, and they will help you to be able to give you the drive to make you strive to protect the people close to you with an even greater amount of vigor. So don't worry, Naruto. You didn't fail the mission, and you didn't fail as my apprentice. You could never fail me, you understand? Jiraiya held the boy's shoulder tightly, but he never noticed as Naruto's blue eyes met his own dark ones and Naruto's body shook before he dove at his godfather, clutching the man's vest tightly. I understand, Naruto said before he finally broke down, and he cried his frustrations out. His anger, his self-disappointment, his self-loathing, all of it came pouring out, and Jiraiya could only rub his godson's back as comfort for him. Chapter 9, Change. Dark clouds rumbled in the air as rain poured across the ground in the outskirts of town. The heavy rain poured, hitting rooftops of shops and houses around and within the village blocks. This murky, depressing weather matched the behavior of a certain blonde that was standing out in the open in a field not too far from the town. His back hunched and his head was lazily leaned back as he stared up into the sky above and felt the water droplets hit his face. Naruto stared at the heavens with dull blue eyes void of all emotion, but his mind was screaming with inner turmoil. He was holding an emotion that should not be suppressed by any means, but despite that he couldn't express it, not in the way he usually would. In all his life he always hid his pain by doing pranks, being brash and loud, acting like an idiot that he would always be. However, this was different. He had let someone die on his watch, he had made a mistake and let someone fall during a mission that he wanted to be truly successful with everyone coming to the town, to the palace alive and well. That did not happen. He let the royal guard of the princess die, he let Hayato die, and he could do nothing to bring him back, nothing to make up for the loss. All he could do was blame himself, and shoulder the burden, and carry the weight of the dead. He was a shinobi, a demon in the shadows, a person who was meant to succeed in a mission no matter what the cost, to carry the burden of humanity, to be the foot soldier that protected an entire nation within the shadows, to be void of all emotions in the battlefield, to kill whether it was the guilty or the innocent. The blonde viewed himself as a pacifist despite his brash attitude. Though he was not like Haku, who was too gentle and too kind to be fit for the life of a shinobi, Naruto was not afraid to take a life if necessary. No, it was losing the life of someone precious that hit him hard in the shinobi life. He may have not known Hayato as long as Mio, but he was still a responsibility to the blonde Uzumaki. There was nothing that made Naruto feel any better. The daimyo told him it was not his fault, Jiraiya told him it was not his fault, that things such as these should be expected during the line of shinobi work. Hell, even Hayato's last words were not to allow himself to feel self-blame for the guard's death. Despite such words from a leader of a nation, a powerful shinobi, and a dead man, Naruto was not the type of person to let this go. Lightning flashed from behind him, bringing light for only a brief moment before dissipating. Thunder followed, bellowing around him as if Kurama himself was roaming around the place freely as he greatly desired. His clothes were now drenched, his hair damp and covering his face, but not once had he moved. The two that existed within the confounds of the boy's mind were silent. Kamina looked at the boy's mental manifestation with sympathy, and out of respect said nothing to entice the boy in his emotional state. He had watched the behavior of the blonde go on like this for 2 days, and of course he could push the boy, but this was something that was not his best subject. It would be a contradiction for him to tell the boy to move on after all. On the other hand, Kurama had his eyes narrowed. His malevolent-filled and blood-lusted nature was somewhat gone from his eyes as he showed understanding, but as well as annoyance. The nine-tailed beast rose from its lowered position before shifting a bit closer to the bars of his cage, glaring at the tiny human below him, and frowned. "Naruto, get your ass into gear and move on. This is pathetic of you to waste time on something as small as this." "Kurama, you are out of line on this," Kamina said as he looked up at the fox outside its cage. "There is a time and place for everything, and right now this is not the time." "Oh, and when is the time going to be right, Raijuu? Will it be a week or perhaps a year when he is all pathetic like that annoying Uchiha he is obsessed about?" Kurama narrowed his eyes. "No, the time is now for him to act like the shinobi that he is and grow a pair. The way that he is now, the little respect that I hold for him will be nothing but from ash from a burning leaf." "Since when did you have respect for the boy? After he was growing stronger or before he was born?" Kurama snarled at the canine-like thunder beast as gleaming red eyes shone within the darkness within his cell. "You do well to remember that I can crush you as easily as killing 100 people with my killing intent alone." "I'd like to see you try then, beast," Kamina snarled back. Lightning cracked the ground as Naruto's finger twitched in reflex to his anger. "Enough." His voice crept out in the room as the two looked at him. "You both are bickering about me while I am right here. I don't need to be talked about. I do not need to be lectured about what is the right and what is the wrong time in being emotional as well. I simply just want to mourn for the mistake that I made and be left alone. Naruto, it is not our place to say what you can or cannot feel. You have every right to be as emotional as you are now. However, it is not healthy that you stay like this. I am waiting for it to pass, but Kurama is right about something. You need to let go soon," Kamina said. "I did not say soon, Raijuu. I said now. This boy is pathetic, lying on the ground like a worthless insect. He should not even be a shinobi if it means he is going to act like a child if he cannot handle losing someone in at least one mission." The fox huffed in frustration. "This boy is not worthy of being my Jinchuriki, he is not worthy of holding my power, and he is not worthy of even being the child of that wretched Yondaime Hokage he so admires." The attention of the fox was quickly changed from the Raijuu to the blonde as the young shinobi stared at Kurama with cold eyes. Kurama felt somewhat startled upon the gaze that held a raging storm within them, but did not lose his gaze upon the boy. The boy muttered something that he did not quite hear and grunted in questioning. "Shut up." "HM?" I said. "Shut up, you fucking fox," Naruto said, receiving a low growl from the titan-sized fox. "You think it's so easy to lose someone, to wash it off like it's dirt on your hands. I am a shinobi. I am fated to kill, but I am also human, something you will never understand." Kurama narrowed his eyes as he reared his head forward to the cage and growled in opposition. "Fool, I am a millennium old. I am the king of Bijou, the greatest calamity that walked the earth, the destroyer of lands of life itself. I kill whom I wish when I wish and destroy what I desire." The imprisonment shook as it radiated red. The chakra enveloped the great beast as it shadowed his entire mass like he was a monster from the abyss. "I hold the malice and hatred of a million souls to know well enough that you humans are nothing more than greedy, hateful, and power-hungry enough to kill even the person closest to you." The malevolent chakra of the tailed beast swayed around the room. "Your hatred and anger is like a raindrop in the ocean compared to what I hold. You cannot hold a candle to my power, power you so desire, that you need to bring back that pathetic Uchiha of yours," said Kurama, before a massive bolt of lightning struck at his cage with great fury. "I could care less at this point. This is not even about him, you giant idiotic fox." Cold blue eyes narrowed up coldly. "I do not care what you believe your level of anger is. You could have anger that's equivalent to the power of the sun for all I care. However, my anger right now at you surpassed even beyond that." The blonde walked up close to the cage and stood right at the bars, placing his hands on them with a vice grip as volts of electricity surrounded the cage, a sudden shift of wind appearing outside, blowing the coat of the thunder beast and kitsune as air circulated around Naruto. He stared up fearlessly as he gritted his teeth. "I don't care if you are 1,000 years old, as I do not care if you are an immortal beast of unlimited power that even the strongest Kages cannot comprehend. You do not understand sorrow, you do not understand compassion and love. The only thing you know is the hate that you allowed yourself to wallow in order to become who you are, a spineless, cranky-ass bitch." The words brought fury down upon Naruto, with Kyuubi's rage erupting through the cage, and Naruto pushed back with his mental force in the form of a storm. The beast may be a wild force, but this was his mind. His will not be backed down, and his fury will not die. "I never wanted your power, just as much as you never wanted to be within my fucking belly. Our fates sadly have intertwined, for what purpose can only be known for the future. However, I will not tolerate your behavior as long as I am like this. I will not be told of my faults and my mistakes. I will not be told I am weak by the creature who himself is weak because he does not understand the meaning of compassion. So as long as you are in my fucking insides, I will expect you to shut up and curl in the fucking corner of your cage. Do I make myself clear?" the young Namikaze said coldly before letting go of the cage. He turned at a full angle and walked away from the cage, leaving a silent, shocked, and aggravated fox. However, the blonde paused as his fingers twitched with lightning, and he turned and shot a large, fully charged bolt of lightning at the fox's face, hitting him directly in his right side and striking a heavy blow on the beast's eye. This had caused Kurama to flinch back and growl in slight anguish as it covered his right eye in anger. One more thing. The temperature dropped around Naruto as he gazed back. "I do not care if you hate me or want me dead. I don't care at this point. However, let me give you one final warning." His eyes glowed an even colder azure blue as he stared at the Kyuubi no Yoko. "I don't care if you are a god or a tailed beast, or even the first Hokage himself. I will make your life a living hell if you want to boast and degrade the works of the dead and the sacrifices that they had to make in order to keep their world safe just a little more." Kurama's eyes shot wide as he felt a faint memory hit him to the core. The words may have been spoken differently, but they felt so familiar to him as he felt the memory of a distant past hit him ever so nostalgically. "You may be the successor to your progenitor Kurama, but that does not mean that I will not punish you if you do not remember and pray for the lives that your progenitor has taken from these lands." Kurama stared down at the boy with a faded look in his eyes as if he was gazing upon someone else. He felt a spinal chill for a brief moment before he regained his sense of strength. One of the few things that Kurama could agree with himself on was that each Jinchuriki he had always said something unique. As the Jubi was split from inside the Rikudo Sennin's body, he learned of life, peace, and honor despite his chaotic nature by birth, which slowly turned malevolent by the witnessing of wars by several generations of shinobi clans and imperial kingdoms before the elemental nations began to arise. Then when he was sealed upon his first Jinchuriki, she wanted his malevolence and hatred to sleep within her, and embraced the positive nature that she would give him. Kushina as well, while more brash and hardy, had followed a similar approach to Mito's ideology despite not coming to direct contact with him as much as Mito, or the old man, had done. Yet while this boy held some form of their ideologies, Naruto had more characteristics of the old man than his Uzumaki predecessors before him now. His pain showed his emotion of desire for something he wanted so much. His respect for lost lives was strong, even if he barely knew them. The blonde even had a moral code that was somewhat similar to the Six Paths' own moral code. He carried the ideals of his parents, and those close to his heart, combining it into making it one pure ideology, the ideology of the Six Paths. Kurama had more respect for this boy than he did his mother or Mito, but his respect for him was only a finger compared to the respect that he held for his creator, and despite how much the blonde had acted like him right now. The great-tailed beast gave a low snarl at the blonde before covering himself in the shadows. Very well, I will not say anything about your parents, Naruto, but I expect you to not be weak. If I see any weakness, then your words will be non-existent when I feast on your body when I break this cage by force, he said before becoming silent. Naruto narrowed his eyes before he turned away from the cage before fading out of his conscience, leaving the Raijuu in the vicinity of the open space with a sigh as his form vanished. Naruto's eyes shined once more as he saw the dark sky. It had stopped raining, but the thunder had continued to rumble lowly just above him. His breath slowed as he closed his eyes and lowered his head. His eyes opened to slowly become wide-eyed, visually shocked by the destruction before him. Around him were craters of large proportions laying heavily around the field. Trees were scattered around the vicinity, split from their trunks, or rather split in half. Some of the trees even seemed to be charred and burnt, with what little remains of water steaming off the wood. Naruto just simply stared, fear slowly quaking in his heart as adrenaline pumped ferociously, and his mind scattering about as anxiety rose in his mind. What happened? What could have done this? Naruto looked around the area cautiously. How did I not sense this or even hear this happening? Because you were lost in your mind. Kamina spoke out quietly from Naruto's mind. Your mind becomes distracted whenever your emotions are in turmoil. This is the consequence of that result. What are you talking about? Naruto questioned. Are you saying I caused this? That is exactly what I am saying, Naruto, the Raijuu said with a calm voice. It is my fault that I had not told you sooner, but I had believed that you would not have such an episode such as this, since your progress with your powers has tremendously improved. Sadly, I hoped for too much. But how? Kamina was silent before he spoke once more. Your bloodline originates from a Raijuu, from me. To have such power, however, it must be used with such control, as you hold a great power that can alter the balance of the world if used. Raijuu mode. Naruto paused when he heard the phrase Raijuu mode. Yes, it is a trait a Raijuu can possess. It is one of the few reasons we are called the storm bringers of heaven. It is a form that is of unadulterated power, taking form through the spiritual energy flow of nature and our will. It is only called upon by a few emotions, love, anger, sorrow. The power is dangerous to all sources. The stronger the emotion, the stronger the power. Few have controlled that state, but those who have were able to even rival some of the gods. But that is not saying they were not strong or had their own states. Kamina lowered his head. Your depression had allowed you to become out of sync with your consciousness and emotions, thus you had subconsciously called out your bloodline, releasing this power by mistake. Your emotions of guilt and failure were strong, but not powerful or serious enough to allow it to be as awe-striking as what could have been. If too far gone, I would have killed you before causing a disaster. That's how dangerous it could have been. When he heard this, Naruto gazed further upon the destruction a while longer. Gritting his teeth, how could someone like him be a shinobi if he took one life so seriously? Maybe Kurama's right. Maybe I am weak? Kamina lowered his eyes. Naruto. A step in a puddle of water had caused Naruto to kick him out of his depressive state as he looked back. The large man that was his teacher looked at the blonde with a smirk on his face. Naruto lowered his defenses as his lips turned to a frown and his eyes lowered. Erokyofu. Gaki, I would like to say that you look like shit, but I think you already know that. Onyx's eyes stared at the destruction and frowned. He knew the death of that guard Hayato hit him hard. Jiraiya just never expected it to hit the blonde this hard. I guess you are still hitting yourself hard on that mission. The blonde stayed silent as he lowered his head. The older male smiled sadly as he walked toward the blonde and placed his large hand on his shoulder. Come on, let me take you to your room so you can get redressed, then we can go somewhere that we can talk, he said to the boy as his hand had shifted to the boy's back and slowly pushed him as he let the boy follow him back to the palace to get some warmer clothes for the day. He was going to let his godson release this pent-up emotional stress one way or another. What better way than to do it the old shinobi way? Core. You want me to drink this? Naruto said with a deadpan look upon his face as he pointed down upon the small cup of sake that was before him. It wasn't like he was not surprised, because he just wasn't expecting to drink alcohol anytime soon. That and something in the back of his mind felt rather annoyed at the older shinobi for giving a 14-and-a-half-year-old an alcoholic beverage. No shit, I want you to drink this. You need to release whatever the hell is going up in your mind, and what better way than to be drunk and at ease, said the man as he took a sip of the wine from his cup and gasped with delight. Ah, that hits the spot. You do realize that Kyuubi burns poisonous toxins out of my system, right? I'm basically alcohol-proof, he said before reaching out to the cup slowly with caution before he grabbed it. He placed the cup near his lips before he let the liquid pour into his mouth and swallowed carefully. Naruto could taste the sweet, but very strong bitterness of the beverage. The liquids brought out a strong sensation inside his chest before it died down slowly. The blonde shook his head somewhat violently to shake the liquor jitters off, and sighed. If I do manage to get drunk, it won't be for probably hours. That may be, but sometimes drinking fine wines such as sake can calm the nerves down. You don't need to necessarily be drunk, just a little tipsy so that way your mind can travel away from the sorrows. Jiraiya poured a larger portion of sake in Naruto's cup, giving a sad smile. Besides, I think I understand your problem quite too well. What better way to get out of this shitty state you are in than to listen to the wisdom of a veteran such as myself? Since when do you have wisdom? The only wisdom I recall you having is when you are peeping at hot springs. The blonde spoke as he swallowed the substance in his cup, quickly adjusting to the taste of the liquor to his satisfaction after taking a few more sips, slowly coming to enjoy the taste. Besides, you are not usually the best person to give advice. You tend to be a downer whenever that occurs or take it too seriously. Jiraiya frowned a bit. Sometimes in this line of work you need to be serious about it. Too much goofing around and being an idiot can be dangerous and can endanger the lives of others and yourself. I learned that the hard way on many occasions in this life. He looked at the blonde. I am not the best person to give advice or to talk about the biggest of problems. I know, the shit I've been through is different from yours. Some of the things I've experienced were little compared with yours, yet it's the same with your problems being a trifle compared to the experience that I had to experience during my whole shinobi career. The blonde lowered his eyes before closing them and drinking another glass of sake and sighed. Perhaps I'm not cut out being a shinobi. What makes you say that, Gaki? Naruto quivered a bit as he gripped his glass. I couldn't protect that guard, Hayato. I tried so hard to make this mission easy as sound. I thought I could do this with no trouble despite knowing the dangers of this mission. In the end I had to make a sacrifice. Instead of helping the guard and protect him from the other rogue ninja, I had to leave him behind with the princess and fight the other one off. I endangered his life by leaving there to defend the princess like that. The blonde gritted his teeth. I let an innocent man die and I could not do anything to save him. Jiraiya looked at the boy and smirked. If I was someone else, probably some other shinobi with a hardcore attitude, then I would have either called you a fool or have killed you. The man smiled at his student and his godson before he leaned forward and placed his hand on the table. Though you are not the first shinobi nor the last to feel like this. I felt like this on several occasions. My first big team mission with the old man, my students, my closest friend, my best friend, and even your father and mother. Naruto looked up at his godfather before he lowered his eyes. Did you lose anyone on your first team, my dad's team I mean? Jiraiya shook his head. No, thankfully. Your father's teammates are alive and well. You might know them well enough as Tsum Inuzuka and Hayashi Hyuga, Jiraiya said as he chuckled. Tsum was quite the loudmouth and Hayashi was bald and had a pudgy face that almost looked like he was related to the Akimichi. I never spent as much time with them as I did with Minato after they became jonin, what with the war and all, but also because I was closer to Minato as not just a sensei, but like he was the son I never had. Naruto looked at the old man and paused. What was my dad like overall? Smart, respectable, very loyal to his friends. You just developed his skill of intelligence, but you held so much loyalty just like him. Though you have your mother's sense of respect, always not giving it to those who are her elders, he said as he chuckled. When I met your father he was curious about jutsu. His knowledge of learning new techniques that suited his style of combat made him a genius at a young age. What you should know is that he was the youngest member of my team. He was 10 when he was assigned to me. Most of the genin graduated the same age or older than you when you started, and very few like your father, mother, Kakashi, and even Uchiha Itachi graduated at ages like theirs. Naruto nodded. So he was a genius? I guess you could say he was a genius by nature. Your father was truly bright for his age. He became Jonin at 14, became the youngest Hokage at the age of 22, and wasn't even in his prime. If he would have lived to this day, I have no doubt that your father would have had the potential to be on the same levels of big names like the first and second Hokage. He was a natural and one of the few people that took the perspective of being a shinobi both ways. Jiraiya poured the alcohol once more in both glasses as he sadly smiled. He took the code of shinobi with heart, but later made his own code. He was an excellent shinobi, but like you, he was a pacifist at heart. He wouldn't kill morally unless necessary. Naruto looked at his glass of sake and then took a sip from it before placing it back on the table. I take it the Third Great Shinobi World War caused that, right? Right on the mark with that one. It was the most he had ever killed during that time, as well as made him perceive what a shinobi was. The war built a strong, but wise and philosophical character about Minato, yet despite that he knew how to keep his head up and live for the moment and enjoy humor. Jiraiya looked at the blonde. It was during the time he got famous, during his time when he was announced as the Kiroi Senko, haha, oh yes. He crushed a battalion of 5,000 IWA shinobi in less than 10 seconds with his Hiraishin, a feat so great that it placed his feet right with the Shodame Hokage, Madara Uchiha, Sandame Raikage, Sanin, Tsukumo Hatake, and even your grandfather on your mother's side, Mikuro Uzumaki. Yet your father was probably different from these men. He was someone who mourned for the dead despite it being war. When we had some leave time, your father was quiet. You could look into his eyes and see that just by witnessing a big battle such as that, Minato had understood the life of shinobi. What did he view shinobi as? The balance of all things. Jiraiya looked at the boy with a smirk and spoke once more. Shinobi are a nature of order of both good and evil. We are the demons in the shadows, the creatures that mortal men fear at night, yet we are also the protectors and watchers of innocent and our most precious people. To protect our people, it simply means that we must fight others who do the same. Being a shinobi means to endure, to sacrifice for the sake of your people and your dreams, even if you are hated along the way. Naruto focused on the words of his white-haired godfather and slowly nodded in understanding. It makes sense. It's a bit confusing, but I am able to get the gist of most of what you said. Human hatred is the tool the shinobi use today instead of the purpose it was meant to be used as. Instead of being the balance of the world, we have become the chaos of it all. Our anger and hatred blinds us and it seeps through, and we slowly hate our neighbors and we act in violence, and in turn they act in the same accord. We produce anger and fear, breed hatred, and lastly bring suffering upon one another. Indeed, that is another good way to sum it up in his words. Jiraiya chuckled. He always had a way of making words for something. If it would be easier, I think the shortest phrase would be living the life of a shinobi is not the easiest one, Naruto said. Thank Kami for that one, Jiraiya said before he heard the blonde's stomach growl and laughed. Looks like someone is hungry, eh? Yeah, the blonde said sheepishly before the embarrassed grin faded from his face to a sad smile, though it doesn't make things feel any better. Not one bit. I know it doesn't, Gaki, but sometimes we have to live with this life. The white-haired man smirked. How about I tell you a story once we get some food? Come on, you know you want to hear another one of the great tales of the world from the gallant Jiraiya-sama. The blonde rolled his eyes and released a laugh at his idiotic godfather. The Raijuu holder nodded before the toad sage called out to a waitress and ordered barbecued pork and grilled calamari for the two of them. Their expectancy of their food was not that long, as it was until 30 minutes or so that the two had received their meals and had gorged themselves in the pleasures that food could give men despite the mood of the teenage Jinchuriki. In no shortage of time, the two had finished their meals, setting aside the dirty dishes. The older male slouched onto his seat and sighed from both his meal and his train of thought. Jiraiya didn't know what he was going to say to the kid. Eating was one way to get his mind going and to spare the time, but he still didn't know how the blonde would react to the information he was about to give him after all the pent-up anger that the boy had after finding out that he had a family, a clan, and they were all gone, leaving him to be one of the few survivors of a noble clan like the Uzumaki. He was worried what the blonde would do with the knowledge about his family on his father's side. All the man could do was take a leap of faith on the boy's reaction of being understanding rather than him going on a stage of fury in his emotional state. I think it's time I told you an important story, something that marked me in my life, but at the same time, it changed me and made me more mature about the life of a shinobi. While as carefree as I may be, I'm serious about my duties just as I am serious about training you in order to not only become the strongest you can potentially be in my care, but to prepare you for the gruesome events that will happen to you in the future along the way. Jiraiya said as he smirked. Are you willing to listen? The blonde looked at the white-haired man with focused eyes filled with curiosity that had balanced out the pain he had felt. Once the curiosity kicked in, the boy had consciously nodded, leaving the older male to smirk lightly. Good, 'cause this is as important for you as it was for me, he said as the veteran shinobi stared at him. During my early years as a jonin, I had met a boy about 4 years older than me at the time who was also a jonin. He was 13 when I met him. He was indoctrinated as a shinobi by my sensei, and 3 years before the Second Shinobi War had begun. His name was Jin. Best thing to say about him was that he was talented, and held a sense of honor and moral value in life, especially the life of children, yet he was carefree and selfless. It took me a year to get to know him well enough that he became my closest friend aside from Orochimaru before his years of following the path of darkness. Jiraiya lowered his eyes as he grew a wide smirk. Jin was unique, that much was certain. He placed comrades before himself in the line of duty, but he had not once faced an enemy that could strike him down. Hell, before the war even began he could stand equal ground against Tsunade, Orochimaru, and myself, and the only person who could do that other than Sarutobi-sensei was Tsukumo Hatake, Kakashi's father, who was about the same age as he was. The 5 of us were close friends during the last days of peace, and it wasn't until the days of war that everything had changed. The smirk slowly disappeared, replaced with a deep frown, reminiscing on past battles. During the war I had seen many things, and I also experienced many things that I hope you may never have to Naruto. The tide of the war was in our favor during that time until the end. Konoha was allied with Suna, Kusa, and Taki, and we had pushed back Iwa and AIM and their smaller shinobi allied countries. Most of the allied forces with Iwa and AIM fell first, then it was Iwa. Not before long, it was Suna that had been defeated. This resulted in the battlefront being held between Konohagakure and Kusakagure against Amigakure after 4 years of war. That was the war you became famous in, right? I remember reading that in the book you gave me about shinobi history, Naruto said. It was indeed that same battle, the battle that lasted 3 days straight against AIM shinobi and their leader, Sancho no Hanzo, Salamander Hanzo. I'll always remember that battle like it was yesterday. We only lasted so long because we were pushed physically and emotionally beyond the limits we had even been through, he said softly. We would have lost on the second day. Hanzo alone had crippled our forces, killing more than half the shinobi that were assigned to Tsunade, Orochimaru, and myself. I would have estimated that only 12 of us remained after a couple hours or so. We were exhausted, tired and drained from the longest battle we had ever had. His salamander summon, no doubt a boss summon, was even strong enough to hold back Bunta, Manda and Katsuyu all by itself. Its poison was more potent than anything Manda or Katsuyu could conjure up. Its hide was thicker and stronger than Manda's, and the fact that it could toss Bunta around like he was a ball didn't help at all. There were summons like that? Naruto exclaimed. But Gamabunta is so strong though. Manda and Katsuyu are too. I mean, Manda took on Gamabunta and Katsuyu during that mission to get back Bachan, and Katsuyu could do that cloning thing and melt boulders with her acid. Just what kind of monster was Hanzo? A practically unstoppable one, probably the strongest shinobi of that warring era. Anyone who saw him was immediately supposed to flee. Very few have that reputation and fewer people survived against him, was the immediate reply. Jiraiya sighed, rubbing his temples as he brought up the repressed memories of that dreaded battle. In the end, we were to call a retreat, but the few remaining shinobi we had pushed forward, sacrificing their lives to the poisonous gas of Hanzo's salamander summoning. Yet despite the one-sided outcome, Jin stood against all odds and held his own against Hanzo. Wait! Naruto said out loud, I don't get it. How did he die if he was managing to stand on certain ground with the strongest shinobi during that time? Wouldn't the four of you alone be enough to defeat Hanzo? He asked. We probably could have, if we fought together and fully battle-ready, if we didn't get hurt by the burns of the salamander's poison. Jiraiya said grimly, though when Hanzo's salamander shot out its poison cloud at us, in our weakest moment, he came to our aid. The man lowered his eyes and sighed softly. He pushed us just barely out of the range of the gas cloud. The cloud had contained potent poison that corroded even the flesh of human beings and turned it into ash. By the time the cloud had died off, the only thing we could see was ash that laid out in the rain. I think that's what drove us to fight more. The loss of Jin had caused us to push ourselves beyond our limits and go one more round with Hanzo the salamander, but despite that we still lost. You guys lost? Naruto spoke the words with complete and utter disbelief. His perverted godfather, a monster on the battlefield, lost? Jiraiya, Tsunade and Luz just didn't sound so good together in Naruto's mind. His shock remained paramount when Jiraiya nodded. Yeah. However, the battle ended the war by Hanzo's call to end with a ceasefire. Naruto looked at the veteran. I don't get it though. The son of the Yondaime tilted his head in confusion. What's the whole moral of the story if it just ends with you losing your friend? Moral of the story? Jiraiya pressed his finger to his chin. Honestly, from what I've experienced from this and all other things is that pain makes you strong as there is that moment it drives you to do something. True, one could dignify it as using hate and vengeance, however, it's really how a person uses the pain we are given to make a difference. I was in pain for losing my friend, I was angry, but what drove me was not revenge, but all the times he and I had spent going on missions, partying, or just talking. I lost someone I called family that day and I will never forget the person who is known as Jin Namikaze. Naruto stared at his godfather as if he was in a daze, but his eyes quickly widened with revelation. He just stared at the man before he spoke. Enna, Namikaze? Yes, Jin the Hunter Namikaze was his name, but don't rush into things too early, Naruto. Jiraiya said as he looked at him. He is related to your father, yes, however, he is not your grandfather. He is your granduncle. I don't understand though. Naruto exclaimed. The cycle occurred far too much in Naruto's opinion. Just as he was beginning to piece things together, his mind chose to bring up a whole bunch of shit that made him wonder how the hell this and that happened. How is he my uncle when he was the only Namikaze that was around the village other than my father? He had to be my father if that was the case. Naruto said. That would be true, however that is not in this case. The white-haired Sannin said as he looked at his apprentice. When Jin came he had brought Minato to the village when he was about 3 years old. He had told me in order to protect Minato he had changed his last name to his mother's maiden name. He and his sister were from a small clan that had once been expert assassins in the warring eras that died out in the First Shinobi War. His father, his sister, and himself were the only survivors of the old Namikaze clan. Then if he is originally not a Namikaze, then what is he? Naruto had asked quietly. Jiraiya felt sweat dribble lightly from his forehead. He was sired from the head of a clan known as the Otsutsuki clan, an old clan that had been rumored to be older than even the Senju and the Uchiha, though the name had died off to this day. He moved the sake to the side as he pressed his hands together, as he laid them on the table. Your grandmother had married into the Otsutsuki clan during her young adulthood. Jin said that she was deeply in love with your grandfather, and had gotten married. However, her labor with your father was not easy and it had put a strain on her. Your grandmother had died during her pregnancy with your father. Naruto looked at the older male with narrowed eyes. Where was my grandfather in all of this? He could have taken care of my father, and my father would have been possibly different. From what Jin had told me, your grandfather had changed when your grandmother died. He was colder. Minato had not been treated well by him. He would have not lived at all if it were not for Jin. Jiraiya said, a frown bore down on his face. When your uncle found Minato, he was frail and very malnourished. Jin had a strong resentment toward the Otsutsuki clan when he saw his nephew in such a state. As a result, he had kidnapped Minato from the clan and went into sanctuary in the village, became a member of the shinobi corps, providing the best care he could for Minato, saving up money for him, providing a small apartment for him when he came of age, and made sure he had been taken care of in the orphanage during every visit he had made before the Second War. Naruto's rise of emotional hostility had decreased, lowering his eyes as he lowered his head. He had more family, and the one that had lived in the village died long ago. He felt emotional about the loss of Hayato, but now he felt half full. One half he felt better knowing more about his family, but the depression still seeped inside his heart somewhat. He closed his eyes and sighed softly before he looked at his master. Did Tuchan know about any of this? His uncle? His clan? Naruto asked solemnly. Jiraiya shook his head. If he did, he never told me. He was very young and the encounters he had with Jin weren't too long, maybe an hour or two at most. Jin didn't say much, but I think he felt guilty not being able to do more for him. Then when I had Minato on my team I was silent. I didn't have enough courage to tell him that I knew his uncle. I promised I would take care of Minato as if he was my own and I did so, but the thought of your father finding out and him hating me, it was just too much to bear. Pouring another cup of sake, he took a large quantity of the alcohol before placing the bottle down softly. Though with his paternal clan, well, I think he had his suspicions. There were people that were looking for him that were from the Otsutsuki clan when he was a Chunin. However, I believe that the Otsutsuki clan had stopped looking for him around the time the Third Great Shinobi World War came about. Naruto looked down, before he slowly got out of his chair and looked at his teacher. The blonde bowed his head briefly before speaking. Thank you, Erokyofu, for trying to make me feel better, as well as for telling me. He looked at the old man, with what little life he still had in his eyes before he gave a faint smile. I think I understand, if only a little, what you mean. Before the blonde turned and walked away, Naruto said, I don't think Tuchan would have hated you. I think he would have understood what you did in order to protect him, and would have appreciated what you did to make him who he was under your care and watchful eye. I think that is what he would have said. Jiraiya looked at Naruto with briefly widened eyes, before they lowered. His face turned to a warm smile. Thank you, Naruto. I could only hope that is what he could have said, and I think it was through your words. The slightly tipsy veteran shinobi looked at his glass and smirked. Even old men like the Sandaime, old men like me, who had been through war, can hold fear of those close to us. Sarutobi-sensei prized the three of us despite the pains Tsunade went through, the perverted side of myself, and the dark path that Orochimaru had followed. I took great pride in my students as I saw Minato as the one to surpass me, and so I tried to pass on my legacy to him, and he is now dead. I am teaching you now, just like my sensei had taught me, and like I have taught Minato. So that one day, you may become my legacy and make a path that I hope that one day everyone can follow. Naruto looked at Jiraiya. The blonde gave a bright smile that was exuded with energy, as he slowly lifted his hand to his chest and balled it up to a fist. Then as your legacy, no, as all of your legacies, I will carry the weight and I will push forward no matter what the cost. The blonde turned as he walked out of the bar. Because I never give up, that's my nindo. The blonde's blood had burned with an intensity like no other. His drive and energy was slowly coming back to him as if it had been gone for years. He understood that the life of a shinobi was a harsh one that was surrounded with death and sorrow. However, that did not mean he was going to give in to it. He was going to fight for his beliefs, his goal to protect innocence, to protect his loved ones, and strive to do something useful, to make a change in the world that of today. After he went to sleep off the alcohol that was not purged out of his system, of course. Naruto was prepared during the next day, backpack on his shoulder, as he slowly carried himself inside the palace to the outside. He groaned loudly as he held his head in anguish from the bittersweet moments of last night's events at the bar. While he had not been on an actual hangover, his head still throbbed greatly enough to make him feel the after effects of being somewhat nauseous from his first night drinking. This resulted in causing him to feel uncomfortable moving around the palace halls, but without feeling of the coming and going of the world spinning around him like it was a merry-go-round. He would have to get used to drinking so his chakra and Kurama's could get used to purging the alcohol in his bloodstream. Kami, how does Bachan manage to go through the entire day drinking and then move on to the next day without a damn headache? He muttered as he shook his head, which was probably one of the worst things he had done for himself as it resulted in causing the migraine to grow more. He groaned louder. I need some water to get rid of this fucking headache, a hot shower to be exact. Senju and Uzumaki blood are unique. Kamina's voice echoed through his mind. One of the downsides of having beings live within your subconscious. When you have a really bad headache, it really fucking hurts. Their blood can burn toxins or poison out of their system if they have come in contact with it. Comes with the vitality of the Uzumaki and the natural use of energy from the Senju, though I figure once you take a little more time with your liquor I figure your Uzumaki blood will kill off the remaining toxins. Kamina said in the boy's thoughts. And I believe coffee is what humans drink to get rid of a hangover. And I don't have the luxury to do that right now. Naruto groaned back mentally. Erokyofu and I are leaving today to continue my training and I can't let some headache get in the way of that. Naruto said as he moved forward to the outside. He was going to wait outside the mansion walls while Jiraiya had finished conducting business with the daimyo which, for political affairs, Jiraiya was good at despite his distaste for it. Though he was smart enough to avoid lengthy talk or getting out as quickly as possible. Well then just let it purge out of your body for the rest of your day, it shouldn't take too long. The Raijuu advised in his gruff voice as he got on all fours and stretched his legs. Once we are outside of the city we will commence the continuation of your training. I think it's time that you learn to excel further into your bloodline, starting on how to control your emotions. My emotions? Naruto was confused before he felt a memory of last night's events come to him, and gave a slight frown. Right, Raijuu. Exactly that. Your strength with your new Kekei Genkai is impressive, growing at a faster rate than I had thought that you would progress. However, if your emotions go unchecked, you will lose control of that power and only Kami-sama will know what the consequences of such actions may be. For all we know, you might destroy a wide area, go berserk and attack people upon instinct, or not even be able to use your Kekei Genkai for a period of time. We must train so that you can channel or filter the emotions that cause your abilities to go haywire to become something that may follow in your favor when you are on the battlefield. The Raijuu said. To do so will require a lot of meditation and a lot of training. Wait, did you just switch out torture for training? Naruto exclaimed with a tone of alarm in his mental voice. A sweat drop formed on the back of his head when he was met with the innocent whistling of the thunder beast. The heir of the Uzumaki sighed at that, but upon doing so, the blonde had noticed something out of place. Kurama was silent. The strongest of the Bijou had been so ever since the events that had happened yesterday evening. Naruto frowned as he spoke. Kurama? As expected, the boy had gotten no answer from the Bijou. He sighed as he closed his eyes for a moment before opening them to reveal himself in his very own mindscape. He stared within the cage, seeing only darkness inside and not a speck of evidence that the fox was ever inside due to his silent nature. The boy got close to the cage before he was mere inches from one of the cage bars. He placed one of his hands on the bar before he looked inside the cage with guilt upon his face. Naruto gulped as he caught himself. He didn't want to further anger the Bijou by using his true name. Kyubi, you may not want to talk to me and I understand. Whatever trust and respect that you had built for me is probably gone from our argument. You were pushing me to get out of my depression in your own way and I had returned with hostility and anger. I had threatened you and more importantly I had threatened someone who was part of me since I was born. I threatened a part of myself. Naruto bowed his head. Despite everything I've ever said and done to you, I do look up to you. I mean, you're the strongest being I have ever come across and after everything that's happened to you you still had the ability to swallow your pride and hatred for me and take me under your wing. After everything that's happened between us, I've actually managed to gain a liking for you, Kyubi. Naruto released a hollow chuckle. I may even go so far as to say that I can call you my friend, even if the feeling may be entirely one-sided. Naruto's blue eyes stared into the blackness of the cage. No ominous red glow, no cracking open of the eyelid to reveal the shining crimson eyes of the demon, nothing. Naruto glanced down at the tiled ground of his mindscape. Kyuubi, I am truly sorry. Words cannot express how truly regrettable I feel about my actions, and no words can ever come out of me that will be able to earn back your trust. There was no return voice from the other party member as he looked to find the fox. Sadly, for the second time that Naruto searched for signs of the kitsune's signs of response, he received none. There was not even a speck of movement, or a glistening of red eyes to stare at him in interest. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he gripped the bar and walked inside the cage. The Raijuu, who was observing the scene, widened his eyes in shock. Kamina was going to stop him, but fell too short as the blonde was already inside. As much of an influence he had on the chakra flow of the bijou, the inside of the seal was Kurama's and Kurama's alone. The divine being could not do anything to manipulate the bijou within his own confines, but the Thunder Beast continued to watch the events that played out before him. I will make a promise to you, one that should have been made by all other hosts before me. I am your friend. I say this as a fact and nothing less. Naruto pointed his thumb at his chest with a determined look in his blue eyes. In my eyes, you are not the Kyuubi no Yoko, natural disaster of the elemental nations and apocalyptic demon. You are my ally and my confidant, you my conscience and my comrade. As such, I will do whatever I can to help you. The conviction in Naruto's voice grew, as he grew closer to the silent kitsune. I will get rid of the hate that you hold inside of you, and I will bear the weight of it all on my shoulders if it means that I can purge it from you. The blonde continued to walk closer and closer to the unresponsive bijou, and made no intention of stopping until he reached his target. And then his steps echoed through the cage. When it is all said and done, Naruto stopped in front of the gargantuan, nine-tailed beast. He reached out with his hand, and in a show of either great stupidity or great bravery, he placed it on the kitsune's fur, and his trademark foxy grin formed on his face. I will release you when my time has come to an end, and I will be your last Jinchuriki, Kurama. Kamina's electric blue eyes widened and the eyelids of the gargantuan kitsune snapped open. The shining crimson orbs of the Kyuubi no Yoko were filled with nothing but complete shock at the revelation from the blonde. Finally managing to get his chakra brain to obey his commands, Kurama turned his head, but as soon as he did so, his Jinchuriki was nowhere to be seen inside the mindscape. The feeling of the small human hand touching his fur vanished as if it had never been there. Naruto's existence within his mindscape had been completely removed, leaving Kurama alone in his cage. The fox's eyes lowered as he frowned and closed them once more, laying his head upon his paws. Silence reigned supreme for what seemed to be an eternity within the seal. Not even Kamina could utter words to break the silence because of how much he had been caught off guard by his young student's words. Then the Kyuubi scoffed. Troublesome brat. Core. Naruto opened his eyes as he found himself just standing in the hallways of the massive mansion that was the Fire Daimyo's residence. He was alone, and he was a bit thankful for it, since it would have been pretty weird if guards, or maybe even Mio, had come across his form as he was talking with Kurama. The blonde Uzumaki unleashed a tired sigh at that thought before walking through the halls once more. He came to the massive doors that seemed to intimidate those who stood before them due to their massive size. Pushing open the mahogany doors, the light of the sun graced the Toad Sannin's apprentice, forcing him to squint a bit. Once he had gotten used to the light, his eyes widened in mild surprise when he saw the brown-haired princess of the capital. She was dressed in her usual expensive garb consisting of a lavish kimono, but this time it was made up of a brilliant combination of blues and white, though her hair remained in its trademark bun. The symbol of the royal family, the golden flame, was pinned to the left breast of her kimono. She was standing so she was facing a bit away from him, but it seemed as if she had a lot on her mind from the way her brows furrowed and the way she was mumbling incoherently to herself. The son of the Kiroi Senko closed the door behind him as he stepped onto the cobblestone walkway that led from the doors. Myoheim? He asked. The sound of the door closing and the unexpected voice caused the princess of the capital to jump in surprise. She held her chest as she tried to calm her rapidly beating heart. Naruto released a bark of laughter at her expression before raising his hands in mock surrender when the daimyo-to-be directed her newly formed glare at him. Sorry, but your face was hilarious," he said as he stopped laughing. "So what are you doing out here, Myoheim?" Myo blushed a bit as she turned away from the blonde. "I was just happening to be on one of my daily walks through the grounds. It's not like I was waiting for you or anything. You showing up was pure coincidence." Naruto sighed. He would never understand this woman. "Alright, you don't have to be so snippy about it." "I'm not snippy," Myo shot back with a blush on her face. "However, seeing as you're here, I did actually want to talk to you about something, Uzumaki-san." Naruto tilted his head in confusion. Ever since the end of the failed, in his opinion, mission, the heir of the royal family had never once spoken to him, and when they managed to come across each other, they either ignored each other. Naruto, for being reminded of his failure, and Neo because she had still been holding a mighty grudge due to the loss of the captain of the royal guard and her friend. "Why you do?" he asked. Neo nodded before turning to look at him face to face. Her chocolate brown orbs met with his cerulean ones, seriousness clashing with complete and utter confusion. Neo took a deep breath as if to prepare herself for something before she placed her hands together and bowed lowly to her former guardian. "It is with great humility and the reduction of a great amount of my pride that I bow to you to ask for your apology, Uzumaki-san," she said. Naruto's eyes widened. What? The daimyo-to-be narrowed her eyes as she had her eyes facing the ground, though the main reason for this was to hide her blush of embarrassment. "Do not make me repeat myself. It is a great blow to my character that someone of noble blood such as myself should bow their head lowly to a commoner like you, even if you are a shinobi." The son of Yuzu remained silent for a moment before frowning. "You hate me, Myoheim. You have every right to, and you have absolutely no reason to apologize to me. I have already come to terms with it, but I failed the mission in my own opinion. The loss of your royal guard, of Hayato, it is entirely my fault, so." "But it's not." Her head shot up, surprising the blonde and caused him to backpedal. Myo gazed at her former guardian with what seemed to be sympathy shining within them. "It's not," she whispered as she looked back down at the ground before looking off to the side, observing the blades of emerald grass, the colorful flowers and dandelions sway slowly in the gentle breeze. I did hate you at first for everything that happened on my return trip here, to the capital, but I had a talk with Otosama, with the daimyo." "What did he tell you?" "The Royal Guard is a task force created with the sole purpose of protecting the royal family, and it took many an explanation from Otosama to get it through to me that that task meant that the Guard would sacrifice everything, including their lives, if it meant the survival of the royal family, my survival." As she ate this, the spores on a dandelion all flew away as the wind's speed increased except for one which remained planted to the plant. "And I'm sure they were happy to do it," Naruto said with a gentle smile. "You are precious to the people of the capital, Myoheim, and you hold first priority as the heir to all of this." He gestured to the mansion behind him and everything around it. "Would you have?" Myo asked. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. "Done what? Would you have given up your life for the sake of my return to the capital?" The Raijuu holder sighed. "I bear a hero complex, Myoheim. It's in my character to go down fighting if it means that I can save the people I am ordered to protect or if I can save people in general. If you had died and I had lived, I would have held the guilt of not being able to protect a life as precious as yours over my head for the rest of my life. You were the priority, and so yes, I would have given up my life if it meant yours would continue to go on, Myoheim." "Ah, I see." The noble girl blushed lightly at how he spoke those words with such conviction. It made him sound kind of cool in her opinion. Her frown deepened, however, when she took note of he had said he would have felt guilty if she had died. "Uzumaki-san, in addition to my apology, I wanted to tell you that you don't have to feel guilty over Hayato's death anymore. I understand now what you've been going through, and I don't want you to feel that way anymore simply because I couldn't get over a petty grudge." Naruto looked away from her as she said that, but the noble girl gritted her teeth and walked straight up to the blonde. She raised her hand and slapped him harshly across the face, a look of shock forming along with the red handprint on his cheek. However, His head was roughly pulled to the front, and he blushed slightly when he realized that Mio was in very close proximity to him, her hands holding his head in place. Myohaima Myor. Listen to me. Her stern voice made him gulp in fear as he caught the seriousness in her gaze and tone. He nodded his head and Mio sighed. Oto-sama explained to me the burden of guilt that you had been holding on your shoulders, that even though you are a shinobi and apprentice of Jiraiya-sama, you are still human, and you aren't all-powerful. I realized now that I was being selfish and inconsiderate of what you yourself had had to endure as I antagonized you for, to quote you, failing the mission. Myo's hands fell away from the shinobi's face, and she held them tightly against her chest. If I were the one in your place, I know I could not have done half as much as what you had. The mission was to escort me safely back to the capital, a mission you carried out successfully. I still mourn for my friend and guardian, Hayato, but I no longer blame you for his death. So please, Uzumaki-san, don't shoulder the blame for a mistake of mine. Naruto stared at the noble girl as he registered her words. The wind whistled softly as it blew through the mansion's front garden where they stood, and silence reigned supreme for quite a while. Myo looked at the ground as Naruto's stoic look made her unable to look him in the eyes. Ha 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 ha! Naruto suddenly broke out into barks of laughter. The daughter of the daimyo shot her head up at the sudden noise, and her surprise became a look of rage. Why are you laughing? Idiot, I put my heart into those words. How dare you be so crude as to laugh at them? Naruto wheezed as he caught his breath. I'm sorry, Myoheim. It's just that, this is the first time you've ever held such a long conversation with me that didn't involve you insulting my work ethic nor questioning my skills as a shinobi. It makes me kind of happy to hear you say those things, Myoheim. It really does. Myo gulped as her face flushed. Baka. I didn't mean it as a compliment towards you, not at all. I was just telling you this because I felt sorry for you. And I'm still happy for that, Naruto said softly. He raised his hand and placed it on Myo's head with his trademark foxy grin on his face. Thanks, Myoheim. It really eases my conscience to know that you no longer think of me in such a bad way. It would look pretty bad for my rep if I was on bad terms with the daimyo-to-be when I take the mantle of Hokage. Myo raised an amused eyebrow at that. You? Hokage? She buzzed her lips in exasperation. Please, you'd hardly be able to lead a trio of genin, let alone the entire village of Konoha. Naruto rolled his eyes as a smirk of amusement came upon his face. Your faith in me is staggering, Myoheim. And your use of sarcasm is abysmal, Uzumaki-san. The two teenagers smirked at one another before Naruto held out his hand for her to shake. It was satisfactory to work with you, Haim-sama. I look forward to the day I'll be able to work with you once again. As do I, Uzumaki-san. Continue the stellar work you've been doing so far as a shinobi, and maybe I might consider hiring you again as a bodyguard. But it's going to take much more if you want me to help you as a reference member for when you tried to take the position of Hokage. Myo nodded her head stiffly before clasping Naruto's hand as tight as she could. Naruto raised an eyebrow before shaking his head. Even when they were saying goodbyes, she was still trying to be the grown-up that she really didn't have to be. Noblewoman and shinobi separated their hands, and the brown-haired girl bowed once more to say goodbye to her former guardian. The blonde raised an eyebrow when he noticed the slight emphasis of the sway in her hips as she walked away. Was she? Naruto shook his head. Nah. Idiot. Kamina muttered. What did I do? Nothing, Naruto. Just shut up about your thoughts regarding the fire daimyo's daughter before I feel the need to slap you upside the head. Okay then. The heir of the Namikes then proceeded to lay on his back and looked at the clouds drifting lazily through the expanse of blue over his head. The Jinchuriki of Kurama had waited at the entrance of the mansion for a few more minutes before his ears twitched. He shot to his feet before hearing the loud creaking of the massive mahogany door. Jiraiya came out of the front doors of the large palace, and Naruto saw the weary look upon the elder male's face. The last son of Yaza smirked lightly. Seems you had a heyday in there. Heyday is an understatement. I wish that Tsunade could just make better diplomatic inter-country relations with the daimyo's daughter during her time instead of mine, the man said to his apprentice with a grimace upon his face. Do you know how boring it is to sign stacks of paperwork? That demon is the main reason why I stopped aiming to be a Hokage when I turned jounin. Naruto simply shrugged. Nothing we could have done, honestly. It was a mission that I was offered, and it just so happened she wanted to better the trading relations with the capital. I think she mainly wanted to do it so she can get a cut of the revenue stream coming into Hai no Kuni that the capital tends to receive most of, and then spend it on the slots. Anyway, we can't really object to her orders, Ero Kyofu, at least not most of the time, he added with a sly smirk. Jiraiya grunted in disappointment, but had to agree with the blonde on the points he had on the subject. The man slung his sack on his shoulder as he placed his hand on the boy's shoulder and smiled. Are you feeling any better? Naruto looked up at the man and nodded slightly. It is a lot to think about, especially with a damn headache. Naruto chuckled lightly before he continued, though I understand. Not everyone can be saved even if you have the power to do so. But that doesn't mean you can't try your best to protect those who still remain. The older man nodded in agreement before he pushed the boy forward. Come on, we have about a good week or so before we hit Taki. That gives us time to get some training in before we hit the village for the remainder of your training. Jiraiya said. He walked out of the gates. Naruto looked back for one moment before he smiled faintly before he followed not far behind his mentor onto his next destination, not knowing the events that are about to come. So tell me about that conversation between you and the princess. Jiraiya grinned lecherously. Said grin only widened when he saw his student's face flush in embarrassment, and he released incoherent sputters of nonsensical babble. What? How'd you? Kagabunshin. You really think I'd go into a diplomatic situation and not leave some surveillance for you? My clone was just observing and taking notes for my book, but you gotta tell me, brat. She talkin' arranged marriage? How many kids? Damn, I can't wait to be a grandfather figure. Damn, itrokyofu.